All right, so I'm sitting down with Will Franken. Will, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Oh man, it's awesome. I saw you, as I think a lot of people have seen you, on Comedy Unleashed, Backyard Comedy.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very refreshing to see somebody put into words what we all thought about Greta Thunberg.
Yeah.
Which was great.
I appreciate that. Andy Shaw was the one that told me. I don't watch as much news as I used to, and Andy Shaw, who runs Comedy Unleashed, he said, they've got, because he's a fellow climate, whatever you call it, climate change skeptic like I am, and he said they've got this girl now in the EU that with pigtails and. So I watched a few clips and I said, this is easy. And I said, nobody's going to be making fun of this. And also it's very, very easy. It's like The Omen. It's like any horror film that has a child as the central character. There will be wars and there will be rumors of wars. It's very, very biblical. And it was actually very easy to write.
Yeah. Yeah, she's an interesting character. And I heard a few comics kind of do bits about it.
Yeah.
But I like your style because, I've seen it described as you're a one-man sketch show.
Yeah.
When I saw you, and this is my buddy Craig, he said the same thing. Actually, my buddy Craig said to me, he goes, it's like watching a full episode of Brass Eye with one guy.
Oh, that's nice, man.
With one guy doing it. And I was like, yeah, it's Brass Eye, but there's like Monty Python's in there a little bit as well, which are two of my biggest. Chris Morris, I think he's the best ever. Especially like the day-to-day and when you get into Jam and Blue Jam and stuff like that. When you start to get into weird
I tried Blue Jam and I should give it another shot.
Yeah.
Because I think I was the day-to-day I love so much because it's just a complete assault on the senses. And it's one of those rare examples of surrealism and satire coming together. Usually, and I know in America, usually you're either a satirist or you're a surrealist.
Yeah.
But he fused those two so beautifully. I always think of that scene where he's going to the next story and he opens his mouth and the visual of the next story, like he's vomiting it out, and all those little nice flourishes to that. It's a perfect program.
It really, really is. And like Brass Eye was where it really went to the next level. It was like the perfectly polished version of it. He was on, Chris Morris was recently on the Adam Buxton podcast, and it was one of those rare interviews that I don't know if you heard that, but I'd listened to it. He's a great mind. And they actually did have access to the BBC like graphics department to do all of those graphics. So then they were in there and just could play around like, no, make this go on absurdly long.
Yeah.
Because then it's, more, it was like, there was a show called, it was in the early 2000s. It's called Look Around You. Have you ever seen that?
With Peter Serafinowicz.
Yeah, it was the...
There were 2 seasons of that. I think the first one, he doesn't appear. It's just a series of science experiments. And I really liked that,
Yeah, it was just so... Like, you can remember those TV shows from school. Oh, we're going to watch TV in school. And it'd be like, it's a maths program. Sit down. It was just so... I love stuff like that.
Great jokes. Like, there's something like the essence of the sulfur has moved 2 feet. And... Oh, it's a quality program. I should revisit those, actually. I've been rewatching all of the Peep shows lately.
That's all me and my brother do. Every night we get some food in, we'll play some Mario Kart, and then we'll watch Peep Show. We've gone through it the entire thing. It
holds up really, really well. When whatever the name is, Thunberg, whatever, when that thing went viral, I was getting all sorts of emails, and everybody's got their own agenda, it seems like say this and do this now. You should do something about this. And everything's so fucking political. And I said, you know what? I just want to retreat and rediscover old comedy again. So I've just, since that thing went viral, I went through One Foot in the Grave again. I've gone through all the Father, just to remind me what it's all about at the end of the day.
So you're really into British kind of comedy?
I wouldn't be doing comedy for the Brits.
Yeah. It's interesting because there's, I kind of feel like, my education in like American comedy, like for stand-up, for me, it's always been American stand-up. I've always loved it more. But for kind of sketch shows and sitcoms and stuff, it's just like, you can't be like you get to Blackadder. Anything old school like that. I don't know if you saw The League of Gentlemen.
Saw him live, what was it, 2 years ago?
Oh, because they redid the show. How was that?
It was very impressive. Structurally, as an event, it was amazing. My friend got some tickets to the O2. I forget what they called the tour, but they started off, I don't know if you read any reviews, but they started off,
no.
The first half before the interval, it's bare bones. It's just like wooden chairs on the stage. They're not wearing costumes. They've got tape on their noses for the shopkeepers, and that's about it. It's just no frills. They're kind of doing a roundup of the best of, and then you come back from the interval. They've got this really elaborate Dr. Seuss style scenery.
Oh, so you weren't expecting it.
And then it just got with costumes and everything. So it's almost like they said, okay, the first half we're going to trick people into thinking this is just kind of a roundup review of our greatest hits, bare bones. And then it was a complete psychedelic mindfuck. And I remember, I don't remember any specific, they went after the social justice culture in a few places. There was, I forget what the church lady.
The one with the bad teeth.
The one with the bad teeth. Yeah, she's out there talking about something, and somebody from the audience, who turns out to be a plant, stands up and complains about, I don't know, racism or something.
Right.
She pulled out a crossbow and shot the guy.
That's awesome.
And then she said, okay, that's lesson number 2. If you ever get something, you can always pull out the crossbow.
Yeah.
And it was really,
that's great.
It was
from someone from a priest, female priest.
Yeah, and it was just so refreshing to see somebody like. It's like they had something to say, but not just in a political way, but in a way, like, okay, we're gonna give you your money's worth. I'm trying to think what the equivalent of that was. Like maybe Pink Floyd, the Wall concerts, where, the original Wall concerts where they'd build the wall on this. So by the end, you'd have this big theatrical thing you weren't expecting, but.
Yeah, because the first League of Gentlemen that they did, like early 2000s, it was all just them in tuxedos, and then the most you'd ever get is like the tape for Tubbs and Edward. When they heard they were coming back, couldn't get tickets, unfortunately, but that's awesome. So they go in and you'll go, oh, okay, so this is what it is.
Yeah.
You think you know what it is, and then it's great, isn't it? I like that. I like that kind of, playing with an art form and subverting expectations in a good way.
Well, the primal element of all comedy is surprise.
Right.
And so many comedians seem to. It's not that the comedians have forgotten that. It's just that comedians they're getting into comedy now, thinking they don't need to have any of these things. They're just going to get them to talk about themselves and my crazy life. And unfortunately, it seems that audiences have come to expect that over the years. So it's kind of a two-way street. The comedians don't deliver, and the audience doesn't expect. And but yeah, it's going all the way back to the ancient Greeks and before. It was the element of surprise. So you got to have some, and that's not just shock either. It's not just going out there and I wasn't supposed to say that. It's like you've got to surprise them on all levels. The form, so the League of Gentlemen. It wasn't just that they were dealing with. I think they mentioned, they kind of alluded to Me Too at one point. I forget what else was going on 2 years ago, but there was the Me Too reference, the tranny stuff, and that was just one level. But the other level too was just like. The surprise of thinking, we're just going to see men in suits do a roundup of their greatest hits, and it turns out it's this psychedelic mindfuck by the end,
Yeah, but I can't imagine, because that would have been a show and a half of them in suits, and then all of a sudden, they turn it? Was it bigger than a normal stage show? Like if you went to see a musical or something, was it of that level, or was it bigger, or was it different?
It was a musical level, yeah. And I think who was it? Is it Tubbs? Yeah, Mrs. Tubbs, and I forget their first names, but
Edward and Tubbs, Tad Syrup are their names.
Oh, really? Okay.
Tad Syrup.
Because I remember they were singing a love song to each other at one point. She was up in some balcony like Juliet in Romeo and Juliet, and it was really, really fucking impressive.
It's so weird, isn't it? He's such a talented dude. The guy, I've forgotten what all the names are, but the guy who plays Tubbs, seems to always...
Steve Pemberton, the big guy, yeah.
Yeah, he seems to always play the really weird, like he played Her Lip, like the German...
Oh, that was hysterical.
Oh my God. Yeah, so did you get new stuff in there? Was like Her Lip in there?
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Oh, cool.
There was tons of new stuff. And I think, I'm trying to remember who else had done that. Mr. Show, are you familiar with him?
I've been recommended it, but I haven't.
Highly recommended. Yeah, they were a cult thing in America.
Yeah.
And one of the few examples I can point to of American surrealist sketch comedy.
Okay.
Very funny stuff. And I saw them live in San Francisco in 2005, and it was the same thing. Like what they had done was they would do a bit that everybody knew, and then a brand new bit, and it just kind of cycled back and forth. But I nearly wet myself, man. I'm just such funny stuff from the stage.
It's weird how with sketch and stuff like that, you can repeat jokes. You can go and see the greatest hits.
Yeah.
Why is it that way with sketch, but it's not that way with stand-up? Because you wouldn't want to go and see a comic unless you were doing... Then again, you probably could do that with your stuff.
What's that?
I'd love to see the Greta Thunberg routine live, even though I've already seen it, whereas I wouldn't want to see... I wouldn't want to see any other stand-up unless it was an act out, Because it's sketch that you're doing, basically, on stage, right?
I saw the Kids in the Hall in New York. And I forget how many years this was after they split up, but I wasn't impressed because that was all entirely greatest hits.
Because it was entirely, right?
And they were all sketch, and I was disappointed because I wanted to see them come up with something new or whatever. But they would have recurring characters, and I never liked recurring characters usually. That's why I wasn't the biggest fan of Little Britain because it was like, okay, I saw this guy before. So for some reason, League of Gentlemen, I didn't mind it as much. I think maybe because the characters were so terrifying, weird, and the story did progress. That's another thing, the overall story, you're right.
Whereas Little Britain was, here's these two people in another city. I don't know if you ever saw the Fast Show. See, the Fast Show...
I saw some of it,
The Fast Show was always the same stuff over and over again, but it got funnier the more you watched it. They walked the line. It's a real fine line to walk, but they managed to do it. Where it's the same thing, you're expecting it, but it gets funnier the longer it goes on. It's one of those weird kind of brass eye style things. Kind of things. Some things do become funnier the more you see it, but it's Little Britain stuff like that. I didn't really like it personally, and I think that might be the difference. But then again, you can do the same thing over and over again. The Fast Show kind of proved that. It's weird. It's such a subjective thing, though.
I couldn't do the Greta thing again myself because I forgot it. I never write anything down. And I just I wrote that the night before.
That's amazing.
I knew I had the gig, and I promised Andy I would do something based on Greta, and I just paced around here and came up pretty much with the whole sequence. And then up until I took the stage, I was outside with my girlfriend, saying, here's my notes, make sure I'm doing this, and I was kind of like rehearsing in front of her before I went on stage. But I fucked up a few live. When I watch, I'm very critical, and I hate watching myself anyway. So I didn't watch it until 4 months later. And I said, let me see what's going on here. And there's a Shakespeare quote that I fuck up. I think one of the characters quotes from Richard II, a line that I thought was relevant to Brexit, and I kind of flubbed up a few of those lines. So, but I don't think most people didn't know, but
Yeah, because there's so many layers to it. So, I haven't read much Shakespeare, so I wouldn't have even known. Some people will, but they'll be laughing at another part. There's a lot of license when it comes to that. My friend, I sent it to my friend yesterday. It's like, oh, this is the man I'm sitting down with tomorrow. And he said, wow, I love the Doctor Strangelove bit.
Oh, nice, yeah.
And I was like, which bit's that? Because I haven't seen it yet.
Heimlich maneuver.
Right, Doctor. Yeah. Oh, okay. So you come up with great sketches, great voices, which are amazing. But then names are it can be the funniest thing ever.
Names are so important, man. I always think of it was the day today. One of the reporters was called Remedy Malahide. I thought, what a great name for a girl, Remedy.
Remedy's a brilliant
Remedy, name. And then Python before that, obviously. Stephen Fry.
Yeah.
I just revisited all of a bit of Fry and Laurie again. And,
nice.
It's weird. I kind of had a weird feeling because my friend gave me his Netflix account so I can, mooch off his Netflix.
Yeah, that's how we all do Netflix.
That's how we all do it now, right?
Yeah.
And I was revisiting those. See, what sucks is I come out here and I've been very vocal about what I feel about the state of comedy in this country because to me it's kind of like unholy. It's like I came here because this is a holy land of comedy for me, and it does seem to have borrowed really bad habits from the Americans as far as having teams of writers, reality TV, all this shit. Unfortunately, came from America. And so Britain, in my opinion, seems to have lost its way comedically, but it's set out of love. It's not like, fuck this shit. It's like, no, you can do better.
Yeah.
It's gonna require accepting some pretty harsh truths, and you have to accept the fact that do you even want it to be better? It seems that people have said, would you rather have fairness or would you rather have good comedy? And so those of us who are saying good comedy, kind of getting shouted out in the name of fair. Everybody who wants to be a comedian should be a comedian, but and so Stephen Fry, when I came out here, it's like, he talks about bipolar disorder. He married some comedian who's like, he's old enough to be his, son. And it's a lot of personal Oprah Winfrey type shit, but watching a bit of Fry and Laurie again, I said, despite all of that, and despite so many of those sketches are really overtly anti-Tory and overtly political, you can't deny, and I used to say that he was all 6 members of Python rolled into one when it came to linguistics. This man knew how to beautifully massacre language, and so I'm watching this with a little sense of guilt. Like I'm going back to that 16-year-old kid in Missouri who somehow, through a channel called Bravo, was one of those weird, obscure. Yeah. Do you know Bravo?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah,
Bravo. You can get all the reruns on Bravo. It's a great.
They used
channel.
To show some of the coolest obscure films, and Fry and Laurie would come in. I was like, "What the fuck is happening over there?" And so it is. I feel like that 16-year-old kid watching the game goes, "I wish I could go back in time, in a pre-political age, away from all this shit, and just get back to the surrealism of it all."
Yeah, like my uncle, he's the same way, because you've got a background like English, haven't you? You taught English, right?
I taught English literature, composition. Yeah.
Yeah. So my uncle kind of just really appreciates like the English language, and you were saying about Stephen Fry, like his character Melcher. There was always this thing that stuck out when I was a kid. My uncle comes round and he goes, "Oh, you have to see." He kept saying a piquant observation. He kept saying this because Melcher had said it at some point, and then we were all going around saying it. We were trying to work out what it meant, and he just loved that it was this throwaway line. It was like a very piquant observation, Your Majesty. And it was this. It was that kind of. You knew that he wrote that line.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I love the old shows. I like Blackadder. Unreal.
See, he was, as far as the political, like there were a couple where it was just they'd have a young Tory of the Year competition, stuff like that. And I think I told my girlfriend, I would rather put up with that now than the situation that we're in now.
Yeah. From
the woke, anti-woke, because the whole thing is a big game. It's like, so you've had this, and that's the thing. I don't know if it was woke comedy. I think that's the thing. It was just bland comedy. It was talentless comedians who would occasionally throw in a Nigel Farage UKIP thing, but then we all thought it was woke. I hate that word. I'm embarrassed to even use the term because it's bad grammar, but whatever this thing that they're calling woke now.
Yeah.
And then so this anti-woke thing came up, but fundamentally nothing's changed. It's still the same bland, hacky style
just
of stand-up.
reversing the same thing.
Yeah,
and it's lazy.
Yeah, and it's its own form of virtue signaling and all this, and but nothing's transcendent. So I would put up with the occasional anti-Tory sketch if you got the other 75% that was just pure linguistic brilliance. And there's a couple sketches where he goes after Rupert Murdoch in, I don't know if you remember that. Hugh Laurie plays Rupert Murdoch.
Oh, this in Fry and Laurie. I've only seen a little bit of that. I was more of a... Yeah, I've got a big back catalogue of stuff that I need to go through, because there's a lot of stuff nowadays is shit, to be honest with you.
Oh, it's horrible. I never watch new stuff at all.
Yeah, and a lot of that stuff from the past is where... I mean, I kind of hold on to it like, it's almost like an old wine that I've got, and it's like I don't want to go into it just yet. So I love Red Dwarf, but I've only seen like 12 episodes, but I've seen them 100 times. That's what I had on VHS. And it's like, okay, well, I think I've got like a schedule of stuff that I'm going to go through. I'm like, okay, this year I'm really going to get into this. I'm going to take my time with it, and I'm going to go back through the Blackadders. Then I'll go into Fry and Laurie.
Highly recommended it. There's a couple sketches where, so the Rupert Murdoch thing, like it's not the funniest sketch. It's a Wonderful Life, and then Rupert Murdoch wishes he was never born, and then Stephen Fry takes it and he says, where the fuck are all the satellite dishes? He says, they weren't here because you weren't there to put them in. And I guess I agree with the message. And I think I'm not a socialist about most things, but I think when this country had fewer television channels, the quality was better. Yeah. And there's one particular sketch where Fry plays a waiter, and there's another guest who's playing a what is he? He's supposed to represent some cabinet minister that had something to do with telecommunications. And the cabinet minister asked, and this would have been the late 80s, early 90s, this sketch. And he asked for something to stir his coffee with, and Fry comes back with about 100 coffee stirrers. and he throws them on the table, and the guy says, "What's this about?" He goes, "Well, they're all shit, but at least you got choice."
Right.
And I agree with it. I think that's one of the things that happened in this country was they took over the cable packages and the infinite number of channels. So where you can have a situation, it used to be, okay, so if you had Thames TV and you had BBC, you know, there was almost a pissing contest. Like, okay, you know, we've got this great program. Okay, what are they doing? Well, fuck you, we're going to do this. And it was this wonderful pissing contest. So we'd have Rumple of the Bailey, which I happen to love, on Thames TV. And then you have I, Claudius over on BBC. You know, I'm talking in terms of drama. But it was, you know, or The Young Ones.
Yeah.
The story I've always heard is that the BBC turned down The Young Ones initially, and then they heard there was this new thing called Channel 4 that the young kids were interested in. They thought, we will do this Young Ones thing. So there was this healthy fear. But if you have 500 channels, and some dick over here says, we got a show about reality stars living in a jungle, and they say, okay, well, let's do the same thing over here, but give it a different title. And that's the mentality we're facing now.
What about, well, that's been turned up to 11 with the internet.
Yeah, with the internet as well. Yeah, that as well. We're all fucked.
Now you have infinite choice, which means more people in the market. On one hand, it's, I mean, I wouldn't be able to do this podcast without that. But, I mean, when you have a few options, yeah, you can, they're competing with each other. And when it's, you know, I mean, it was so lucrative then that the best stuff would have had to been the best stuff that got on there, and it really, really was. I mean, I cannot believe Monty Python. I'll show someone a flying circus like episode. You can pick anyone and go, just enjoy this. One of my favorite sketches ever. You got John Cleese. He's there reading the news, very boring the way he would. Removal men come in, they start moving everything out. Eventually, they move him out on his desk. He just ignores them.
They steal him, right?
I thought it was removal men.
No, it was burglars come in.
Was it?
They start firing guns and they've got masks
on.
on.
There's that one.
And they dump him in the...
They dump him in the... Yeah, they end up running. So he ends up basically on the back of this lorry, driving right downtown. And he's still reading the news, completely stern face. Eventually push him off a pier.
That's right,
I remember seeing that in Coventry when I was like... I think I was like 4 years old, sitting in front of like, you know, an old school TV in my nan's house. And I remember just crying, laughing. I didn't know why I was laughing. And that's the great thing about surrealist stuff. I think the best comedy is where any age group can enjoy it. So like the movie Dumb and Dumber is one of my favorite movies of all time, because a baby can laugh at it. And then as an adult, you can laugh at it still. A baby can laugh at him, you know, shitting himself in the toilet because everyone shits, you know. But then as an adult, you start to get into, it becomes more about your experience with your friends watching it and that kind of thing. And that was there with Monty Python from the start.
My favorite, I always say, it was the final episode of season 3. And Eric Idle is supposed to be playing Richard Attenborough, giving awards for show business. And it's a recurring character throughout that episode. I don't know if you remember it or not. Where he's,
it's one of those shows where I've only seen a handful, and I've been through like the first 2 seasons.
He's got like a bald wig on, and first thing he does is he massacres language. So one of the lines, and I'm paraphrasing, he says, I'd like to introduce a person who, without their ceaseless skill and tireless energy, the film industry would be today. So it's almost like he just cut out a huge section of that sentence and sew two things together. So that's weird enough. And then the first time he appears, he takes little teardroppers and makes fake tears in his eyes as he's introducing this guest. And then when it comes back to him later, he's got onions around his neck. And then the very last time he appears, he's got 2 little tubes strapped to his head and a water pump that's just shooting out water. Nice. And I must have been 9 or 10 when I saw that. And for some reason, the idea of somebody faking tears and sycophancy really, really spoke to me. And I think had I not seen that at an early age, I don't know. I mean... But that's why, you know, like a lot of my enemies are people who say they care about something but probably really don't.
Oh, my God.
You know,
the worst people.
The climate change. I mean, all of that shit, for me, my students and my greatest teachers and all that shit probably came from that impact that sketch had on me.
Yeah.
I say, wow, yeah, there are people that probably do fake really caring about something or make things grander than they really are, you know. So the fake tears that he's doing there, that would be the kids thinking that the Earth is going to end because of the weather and all that shit today, you know.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, like when you're a kid and you've only got a few TV channels, when the news came on, I was always like, oh God.
Yeah.
And then you will have seen that, and then it's a farce. The whole thing becomes a farce.
Yeah.
It's just hilarious. The animation as well. Nothing has ever quite, this is stuff that's done with construction paper, and it's still better than everything today.
Oh, yeah.
Because of it, again, limitations, creativity. You know, South Park did pretty well because they started with construction paper doing a similar kind of thing. And it's just old classical drawings brought to life and look ridiculous with like big, stupid cartoon eyes all of a sudden on like a statue.
But then again, you could do that out here because there weren't any adverts.
Right.
You know, so one thought could lead into another. And then in America, you had to have the advert. And they come back. I mean, they broadcast them on PBS, which was America's version of BBC, which nobody watches, really. You know, so America's got its own version of the BBC, which is taxpayer funded, but nobody,
the state funded.
Nobody watches it because it's all cello concertos, and you know, then they would shove Monty Python in at midnight, and but yeah, there was no adverts there, which is the only way. And I think Python fought them. There was one state, I think it was CBS wanted to air them, but they wanted to chop the hell out of them. And I said, no, you can't do this. They were really pissed off about that. You can't, you know, it's a 30-minute thing that goes from point A to point B, and you know, you can't fuck with it.
I hate any interruption on anything. I hate it in podcasts. I hate it in, like, you know, everything. I can't stand it. I don't want to be watching something and then you go, hey, I know you're enjoying what you're watching, but do you want to buy this? Like, imagine someone walked in right now and tried to start selling you something.
Exactly. Which may happen
could hopefully happen at any point. Yeah, it depends on what they're selling, I guess. But yeah, it's crazy. Like the whole Oscars, the Super Bowl commercial thing that you have every year. That's everyone's opportunity to really show how woke they are. Yeah. And they had like the Gillette thing.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Like you did a sketch which was it was about, I've got it written down here. Basically it was about how there was no money in activism. So you're like, no, you have the real activism happens.
Oh,
and then,
that one, yeah.
Then years later, when all the hard stuff's done, then we can start making some money from it, and the businesses get involved, and everyone's arguing over the business shit. You're like, well, people died 2 decades ago for gay rights, whatever, and now, you know, I put a rainbow in my window.
I would do that sketch more if I had it's props. Unfortunately, I got to get one of those PowerPoint things or whatever, because I really did like doing that character. That's old. I mean, that was probably 2004, 2005 when I did that.
It looks like it's recorded on VHS video.
Yeah, I mean, there's shit all over the internet, and because I'm such a bad businessman, it'll be like somebody's channel will have 5 clips of me that I don't even remember doing. But
that's great.
That bit I really did like, and I think there's a line in there about what's easier, fighting for civil rights when there are no civil rights, or fighting for civil rights in the post-civil rights era. It's a lot easier to celebrate diversity now, but yeah, it's that. Every time you go to the hotel and they say, "Help save the planet," you know, use your towels again. You know, the business people got a hold of it.
Yeah,
you know, and the stupid artist allowed them to, because they sold it to the artist, and the artist said, "Yeah, man, this is what real art is. It's about using your towel more than once." And you know,
So why? So you're not doing it because you don't have PowerPoint, or because you wouldn't have access to a?
It's just usually when I don't know if I'm just late. I show up at a gig now, and I just I tend to just drink about 3 or 4 pints and see what comes out. These days,
That's because that's so relevant now. Because you were doing that years ago.
Yeah.
And this is like, it's so, I think that would really resonate now. I'd love to see, we'll talk about it afterwards.
I should do
Maybe I can help you with some of the stuff, because I'm great at all of anything digital.
Well, you need a screen too. And actually, the Comedy Unleashed does have a screen, so maybe I should whip that out again. In smaller venues, I used to bring like a little pad of paper and whatever, but I think it's now if somebody booked me, for whatever reason to do a 1-hour show and I had access to a theater, I probably would be doing all sorts of crazy stuff. But at a club gig now, it's just you show up and you want to just do the best 25 minutes you can do. And
that is that's so relevant. That bit, because it looked old. I thought because you only uploaded it a few years ago, and I thought, no, but this is a much older video.
Yeah, but that's how bad of a businessman I am, because like I said, I had this stuff spread all over the internet, and I didn't have a YouTube channel until maybe 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Because I just don't. I guess I care, but not enough to actually do anything about it.
Right.
And I finally got around to, my friend showed me how to make a YouTube channel, and I said, well, I should get all these clips over to. So I imagine I probably uploaded it to mine about 2 years ago, even though it was probably shot in 2006 or something like that in New York.
Yeah.
I had long hair, didn't I?
Yeah, badass. It was so, and you're so ahead of everybody with it, and it's your style. So for anyone who hasn't seen any Will Franken stuff, just, the best thing to start with, because it's so relevant, is it's like Will Franken, Greta Thunberg. If you can spell Thunberg, it will come up immediately. It went viral, clip recently, and it's just watch it. I'd pause the podcast right now and watch it, and then come back. You do, yeah. So it's, I've been doing stand up for like a year and a half now, and I'll have a subject, something I want to talk about, and I'll be like, okay, so I've got to get on stage, I've got to describe this to people, and then I can do my punchlines. You just get up and act it out. You're like, I'll just show them. You don't even say, and now, sometimes you'll introduce a character, but sometimes you just start talking as a character. And it's like, it's almost like let them work it out as they go, right?
Yeah, or give the character enough rope to hang himself.
Yeah.
I don't, to me, that's the shortest way to get to a point, I suppose. I don't know. I've always preferred characters to stand up. I never found stand up funny. Very, very rare examples like Richard Pryor and Steve Martin I found hysterical, but I think that's because they were more. Pryor was a born storyteller, and plus he dealt with themes that were really fucking verboten at the time. And it wasn't that he was, there was any censorship going on or any of this left wing, right wing bullshit. It wasn't political. It was just he came from a place of utter filth, I think, to where vulgarity almost becomes profound through him. What was I going to say about? Pryor was a rare example of that, where somebody could actually just take the mic off the stand, and he did voices every now and then. But I think there was an open mic I did in San Francisco years ago, and in America they would always have 10 comedians on a bill. Just they. Unfortunately, it's like here. What's good about here is that most comedy nights you've got 4, an opening act, interval, 2 in the middle, interval, and then a closer, which is nice and economic. Gives people time to go out and get drinks and stuff.
Yeah, it's a nice side length of a show as well, because you get a fatigue.
That's it. Yeah. And then in America they'll throw. It's like Walmart. They'll just throw a bunch of shit at you and hope that you want to buy something. And there was one open mic where everybody was just fucking clean. Not clean in the material, but clean in the sense of, nice washed hair and they're just talking like that, and they're comedians, and I'm just bored shitless. And then this guy came in, we think he was homeless, and he called himself the Ant, and he had 2 little antenna things that he wore. And his whole act was he had pictures of the Peanuts characters, but doing really vulgar stuff. So like, the one I remember is Lucy is rubbing a towel through her vagina, and it's bloody, and then the jokes aren't even, it's funny, it's just like crude, and it's like, so he would hold up a picture and say, Charlie Brown wants to fuck Lucy, but she's on the rag. And I'm the only one laughing. And the guy who booked the gig came by and he goes, "You're such a contrarian." I go, "No, he's actually funny. He's funny because he doesn't come from a comedy school. He's not polished. He's a filthy thing from the streets." And I think you could take most homeless people and put them on a stage, and they'd be funnier than most comedians working today, And that's how I see Pryor. Pryor came from a whorehouse,
right?
This real dysfunctional upbringing, and I think that gave him some legitimacy.
He was very good at his characters. Like, he was very good at kind of personifying animals, like the way he do dogs and deer and stuff like that was amazing. You just mentioned comedy school. Another one of yours that I saw, which is just brilliant. You come up and you do a bit where you're reading it out, and it's a comic's notes basically, and there's even to the point where you read out a bit which says "wait for a reaction from the audience." I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. And then you do the same bit after you've been to comedy school, and you put in all of the stuff that you get from people.
I'm glad you've seen that. Yeah.
It was great. It's watching your stuff. Like, I do I do stand up, but I do like a few songs and stuff like that in there. But my funniest stuff that I do is when I'm with my friends just talking and you just be free form. Seeing you do yours is kind of giving me the kind of, oh, I don't have to be like everyone else.
Yeah.
Because some of the stuff that you do, and I'm like, oh, this is so, you're showing people that thing which is real.
Well, I was in Los Angeles, and this was back when I was doing open mics in LA, and I looked over somebody's shoulder who was writing his notes out. And he actually did write, it was something like, hey guys, how's it going tonight? So he wrote out his first.
I've done that.
Man, that's not just a note like, introduction, dogs, or whatever you want to talk about. And I thought that's funny. I just write out a little script and hey guys, how is it going tonight?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stephen Hawking style. Your Stephen Hawking voice is also.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Can we have a little just?
Well, I'm trying to think of something that he did. I did the bit about him helping a friend move house. Yeah. Hey man, my friend Steven, he's really depressed. He wants to stay active. Man, you fucking kidding me? Look at that. No, he's really smart. You're going to take the wardrobe, the bed, and the sofa. Will you take that sock? Yeah, but I think we should get. I'll tell you what. I'll get the sock. You guys get the sofa. There's the whole thing about him. It takes 7 days to move house because he's moving one sock at a time. So they have to put the sock on his lap and take him down 7 flights of stairs. And I said, man,
you're having to move Stephen Hawking rather than move.
You have to move him with the sock,
with the stuff for every item.
For every item. And after 7 days, the guy said, man, do you even know what the fuck you're doing? Do you know that a black hole contains no matter? No, I don't. Then shut up and give me the other sock.
It's like,
it's too bad he died though, because I feel like I can't do the impression anymore.
Yeah, you can.
I have to give it a few years, maybe.
Why?
Well, because I did that with Richard Pryor. I used to do Richard Pryor on stage, and when he died, it was like, it doesn't make any. To me, the comedy has to have some logic to it.
Yeah.
Even the thinnest veneer, the thinner the veneer, the better. But it has to have some logic. Otherwise, you are just a schizophrenic. So, like my logic, whether it's incorrect or not, is if they died. There's something about if they've been dead a long time, you can do it, or if they just died, you can't do it. Or if they're still alive, you can do it. If they've been dead a long time, you can do it. But there needs to be some weird window there of time. Otherwise,
I mean, you've got more experience than I do.
I could be totally wrong. I don't know. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I mean, it's when it works. It works. When it doesn't, it doesn't. It's something you got to kind of feel, and that changes with the times as well. Yeah. I mean, I tried a 9/11 joke in New York, and that didn't do well. That was 20 years later.
Was it?
No, yeah.
What was the joke?
I can't remember. I've got it recorded, but I just remember, that didn't... it was about... it's terrible. But it was about portrait, because I'm a videographer, so people... Whenever I edit video for people, they're always shooting in portrait, and I'm like, it's not like we go to the cinema to watch something in tall screen. It's widescreen, but all of a sudden, because of the smartphone, now we've got these terrible videos,
Oh yeah, where there's 2 black strips on the side.
2 black strips either side. So you want to watch a world star hip hop video, which is 2 people fighting, and then the guy doesn't. If he just did this, he wouldn't have to be doing this all the time, right? So I said the only thing that I can see portrait video be good for is a man on stilts, because then you could fill the whole lens, or a guy on a trampoline, or 9/11 would be good. But that didn't go down too well. That went down well in Canada, but I was too much setup, not that good a punchline. Shit comment.
I was rewatching Peep shows we were talking about last night, and this particular episode, Izzy and Jeremy are talking about how 9/11 was great news. I said, oh man, it was really great news. I mean, I don't mean great news in the sense of great news, but like it was a really good. I can't get excited about anything now because that was really exciting. Yeah, that's what they thought. Like it was an entertainment to them. And
I mean, this is one of the things about. So that's the thing that I'm in, with 9/11, right? People loved it, even though it was terrifying. Yeah. So like the album art on my podcast is like Jesus with the Titanic going down. Yeah. Now the Titanic was the worst maritime disaster in history. Yeah. And yet people love that movie. And you know what their favorite part is? When the Titanic goes down. The crash, yeah. So how long is it until the best part of the 9/11 movie is how scary the building is going down? Because it's the same thing. Schindler's List is the Holocaust experience. Yeah. I mean, we don't want people to have gone through it, but when we watch it, we're getting off on the tragedy of it on some sick level, right? No one wants the Holocaust to happen. No one wants that. No one wants 9/11 to happen. But you know what? I don't think I changed the Titanic because I love the story too much. That's where Jack and Rose were, you know what I mean?
I mean, I had the feeling when 9/11 happened, I was living in North Carolina, and I just left New York about a month earlier. I'd felt so, it was one of those things. I got tired of the city. There was a lot of bullshit going on, and I just randomly moved to North Carolina. And I remember feeling like I wished I'd been up there, because the news was presenting the city as a very different place. Like, people were getting together and all that. So I called my friends up there and I said, "Is it really like a love fest up there?" And the guy says, "Nah." It was about 2 days later, like somebody was saying "you cunt" on the Brooklyn Bridge because the traffic wasn't moving fast enough. So I said it's still the same, but it did see. And to me, it was like the lights went out. It's hard to describe this, but that the lights went out. And I remember because there were no adverts for maybe 48 hours. It was just constant news about the event. And
it was like that in England as well. Yeah.
Was it?
Oh, there was ads, obviously, but like it was the two times that it's been like that was 9/11 and Diana dying.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Full on news. Yeah.
Which was our 9/11 basically.
Yeah.
And it was just full on news all day. Like
there was something so real about it. I remember. I think David Letterman said something that, I'm not going to do any jokes tonight because nothing's funny about this. And I remember after 2 days, then there was an advert for Michael J. Fox was in a show called Spin City. And so after days and days of nothing but constant news coverage, all of a sudden out of nowhere, there was the first advert, and it was a trailer for Michael J. Fox in Spin City on Tuesday. And I thought, we haven't learned anything.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. I thought the lights would go out and we'd, somehow get back to reality. I love reality, which is why I do surrealism. I think surrealism is my way to get back to reality somehow.
Yeah.
And I think that's we just live in such unreality now. Everything's stupid. I turn on the news in the morning. It's all this stupid climate change bullshit, and nothing makes any sense. I think about that guy, that London Bridge guy. He went to a de-radicalization program because he promised to be good. And I thought, if your son or daughter was murdered in that attack, and you had to hear people like making excuses for how wonderful their de-radicalization program is, and how he complied with everything, and nobody just comes out and says, we really fucked up. This is a major fuck up. When somebody plots to blow up the stock exchange, they should probably stay behind bars, no matter how much they say we're going to be a good boy. And that's what you're missing. And to me, that is a state of unreality where something like that can happen, and you can just say, "Well, it wasn't my fault."
Well, there's no one wants to point blame at anything apart from people who had nothing to do with it. It feels like England should feel guilty. Well, what led this man to do this, and how is that our fault?
Yeah.
Just finished reading this Strange Death of Europe by Douglas Murray. And I just cannot believe how much England and Europe has changed over the past. And this is someone who is a direct beneficiary of multiculturalism.
Yeah.
Dad's Iranian, came over here.
Yeah.
But like I remember, this is what my life was. I remember being in Iran and then going home for Christmas.
Yeah.
So I had those two worlds. Where are you going? And I'd say to the girls, I'm going back to England. Oh, cool. It's Christmas. And I had to explain to them what Christmas is. I'm like, oh, okay, enjoy the war. I'm off to have this unbelievable time. It's almost
crackers and turkey
and just like presents and everything. And I remember I loved the people in Iran, but like it was always, I'm going back to England because it was just freer place. It was more fun. And like, so I've been away for a while now, and I've been starting to come back more and more. Last year I was home pretty much for a whole year, but I remember like last Christmas, because when you're away for a while, you really notice the differences when you come back.
Yeah.
First thing I notice is this new government thing on the train. It's like, if you see something that doesn't look right, just speak to staff and we'll sort it. Yeah. See it, say it, sort it.
But they don't mean that literally, because you can't go up and say, I've noticed there's a lot of women walking around in real black sheets and you can only see their eyes. You can't say that. That's to me, that is unusual to see that.
Right.
Still.
But what do they mean? They're very vague, right?
Extremely vague, yeah.
Yeah, so I was talking to my friend Doyle about it. He says, well, you can, it's you're creating an informer culture
Yeah.
There's an informer culture now at the train station. So let's listen to what the train stations used to say. It was the train on platform 4 is going to Norwich, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
After a while, it was no smoking on this platform. Yeah. Now it's those two things. Plus, if you're caught smoking, you will be locked in a cell and raped. Then and if you see something that doesn't look right, be suspicious of each other. Yeah. This is the England that we're living in now.
Well, it's what we were talking about before we recorded, too, that in America there's a clear delineation between the police and the police carry guns, they have uniforms, and then there's the people who aren't police. And here they've got these gradations. So like 3 times I've been ticketed for dropping a cigarette on the pavement. And the guy comes up and, all in black with a body cam. And I think they're called community enforcement something.
I'm enforcing the community.
Yeah, so they're not really a cop, but they're just gradations of police.
Yeah.
And they come up and they slap you with a ticket. And because, you freak out, you take the ticket when possibly you could just say, fuck you. I don't know. I don't know what the law is. But because there's gradations of police. And like what you say there, like if you see something suspicious, what is it? It's very broad.
It is very broad.
It's extremely broad. And it's... I wish they just... I think the police out here should be armed, myself.
Yeah.
You might...
I think that people should be armed.
Lee Rigby's head might still be on his shoulder, if that was the case.
That was an unfortunate incident that we don't like to talk about.
Yeah.
We don't talk about... I mean, you look at beheadings in this country, it's Henry VIII, and then a big gap, and then all of a sudden, we're starting to have beheadings again.
Yeah.
The other thing that I noticed, so... the warnings on trains, and then I'm in Liverpool city centre, and there's 2 cops talking about gradations of police, and they had I've seen the gun on Call of Duty. I'm not sure what it is, but it's one of the high-level assault rifles where it's boxy, square kind of. It's not one like an M16 or anything like that. It's like the new.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I go up to them, I'm like, hey, sorry, I've been away for a while, but why are you walking through town with assault rifles?
Yeah.
And they said, well, it's just a religious holiday, isn't it? I was like, a religious holiday? It's Christmas.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
First off, he says it's a religious holiday, therefore it's going to... what they're saying is it's likely to be targeted by terrorists because it's a religious holiday. Sorry, mate, this is Christmas. This is a British institution.
I get extremely... I take this stuff personally, because they don't seem to be really invested in people who are... If you got money, you say, please come to Britain and invest your money in all companies. And yes, of course. And so if you got money, that's the great... that's the great equalizer. But if you're somebody who just loves the history and the culture of this country, that's a really hard selling point. You say, why are you here? Because I love the history and culture of this country, and I want to do my small part to revivify that. But that doesn't seem to really be a concern. You got people coming here claiming asylum, or you got people spending loads of money to purchase a tower block somewhere in West London. But it's not the idea of just selling a country based on its culture and its history.
When we don't have a culture here, though, you're not allowed to have Western European culture, or Western culture in general. Isn't a culture. First off, it's multicultural, which it fucking isn't. You're forcing that now.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And the culture is based on colonialism. Is based, which is the background of every single country is war of some level. Yeah. Everyone killing each other. It's just that the best countries were the best at it, and now we've moved so far away from it. I mean, you talk about reparations in America. They want to talk about that stuff. So you can get to the point where someone who never owned slaves is going to have to give money, which is what they want, to somebody who was never a slave.
Never happened, though. That's why we vote for Donald Trump.
Right. So I saw that because look, I get a lot of. I'm a libertarian, like yourself. I don't believe in. I
don't know if I'm libertarian.
You're not libertarian anymore. I just heard that. I heard you say that. So
it's Well, I have. It's weird. So many things have changed in the last couple of years because there has been this rise of these supposedly anti-woke people, and I think for example, like FGM. FGM should be banned outright in every Western nation, and
female genital mutilation.
They should come down hard like a ton of bricks on it, which is actually not a libertarian stance. From what if you read people like Brendan O'Neill, they're like, I don't want to spy on my neighbors and libertarianism. But I think for some of these libertarians, if you get rid of all this debate and this woke anti-woke stuff, that you find that they don't really have any principles. It's just, I'm not talking about you specifically or what I've said in the past about my libertarianism, but that there seems to be just pure reaction. Like, you're left, I'm right. You're right, I'm left.
I don't like the label, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I mean, libertarian is just the easiest way of describing it, kind of anarcho-capitalist, but really I just basically just believe in the non-aggression principle.
I believe in the smallest level of government possible.
See, that's probably where we disagree.
Before anarchy, just the tiniest. I believe in a police force and military, but just a handful of institutions I think are actually necessary.
The only issue with that is that it's by its very nature it just does grow. So you look at America, and it's the greatest experiment in self-governance, which started with the smallest government ever. And you've got the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, but now it is the largest government ever. And it's just, by its very nature, it grows. And the Founding Fathers tried to protect against that. But so that's why, once, and I'm just parroting people that I've listened to on the internet, these aren't original ideas, but, if you highlight the immorality in something, so the initiation of force against peaceful individuals through taxation, basically, then you need to, once you've highlighted that immorality, you can't ignore it. It's there. Is there not a better way of doing it without that immorality at its core? Is there a better way of feeding the hungry without stealing from a group of people in order to do that? That's currently the best way of doing it.
I don't think morality even comes into to the equation for a lot of these people. I don't know. Like the climate change thing, for example, we're told how moral this is constantly. It's being, the science is settled. This is a moral duty. I don't think any of these people feel moral about it. That's a very broad, sweeping generalization. But that's my hunch, that it's kind of caught on like a fad. But I don't think there's any kind of moral compass at work.
Where do you think it comes from, then?
It's a fad. I think it's more than anything else, it's a sense of wanting to belong. I've been saying lately that these people would rather be an extra in a Hunger Games film than a hero in their own film. Yeah. So a hero would say, okay, you're all, what? This is the future. The future is sitting in Marble Arch and playing bongos and having dreadlocks and going on about the weather. That's the future? I don't think so. Because and the thing is, because we talked about, at the very least, I'm a deist. At the very base level, when it comes to God, I do believe something had to have created this universe, and if you add that into the equation, then all these other things kind of get fucked up. So if they say we must do our part to end climate change, and then you're coming back with, well, the weather is actually out of man's control. If you don't want to call it God, it's transcendent, universal, whatever that transcendent thing is, it's beyond us. That communist or socialist, for example, don't have, because the be all and end all of human experience ends with the government. Yeah, it doesn't for me. There's something transcendent, if that's art or visions or whatever. Right. Yeah, I follow you. Yeah. And I think it's about wanting. I think it's about wanting to belong. So if you don't have that sense of something, you want to belong, whether that's the left wing or whether that's the new free speech, fuck you, snowflake thing, or climate change or whatever. And I'd never had that. I think some people just don't have that. Like, I'm perfectly fine in my own company reading an old book and not being aware of who the Kardashians are. Right. I'm totally fine with that. I never felt that. I don't have that need to belong. It's
like you were talking earlier about the post 9/11 in New York. There's this story about how there was a lot of solidarity there and people felt closer. Yeah. I read it's called Tribe, Sebastian Junger, Tribe. No, and it's it's Tribe on Homecoming and Belonging, and it's basically, it opens by saying that the happiest time for Brits in the past 100 years was during the Blitz.
Probably was, yeah.
Yeah, when there's an existential threat, life is hard. When life's hard, you really appreciate everything, the taste of food, just dancing, whatever it may be. Yeah. And it's that kind of solidarity and belonging. Oh, we're all in this together. Our bullshit doesn't matter because there's an existential threat, be it nature or the Germans in that case. Yeah. And people actually, it's like when people come back from war, half the problem is that they don't have the brotherhood anymore and the high risk.
This is very true, yeah.
And I think that we've lost a lot of that in society at the moment. So that comes back to your belonging thing. Oh, I want to belong to this group. And the enemy is, well, you're the enemy because you don't believe in this thing, whatever it may be. Yeah. So there's some of that. I also think that maybe half of it, or maybe a bit more, but half of it is also people love telling somebody else they're wrong, and this is why.
Yeah, that's true. And But also, too, there's this dichotomy between leaders and followers. Like Napoleon probably didn't want to be part of a great French Revolution. We're all part of this together. He wanted to be the fucking emperor, and he certainly was, for better or for worse. But it's that some people are leaders and some people are followers. You know, Jim Jones was, you know, a really fucked up leader, but he led a bunch of idiotic followers to the jungle and made them all drink Kool-Aid, you know?
Oh my God. So just on that, watching, the crazy thing about that is that you get the footage of the Jonestown Massacre and the audio.
Yeah.
Like me and my buddy Craig, we like things that people do with their hands. And when he had a Bible, and as he's preaching, he's holding the Bible like this, but then he just flips it around in his hand. He's like very commanding with the book.
Yeah.
And it's a performance, essentially. Yeah. We were thinking, well, how into... You know, because me and my buddy, we've really got into the Rubik's Cube over the past few years and find this whole subculture of finger tricks. We thought, well, how good do you think you could get with a book?
Yeah.
Where maybe you could do that, but to the nth power, where you'd be like fanning it like a deck of cards.
Yeah.
Or you have more of an impact as an orator when you're like...
Well, he chucked it across the room, too.
Right,
at one point, to say, like, that's just a book.
That's just the book. When it lands, and then when it landed, apparently that's when everyone applauded, because it transcended. I mean, it gives me goosebumps thinking about it, even though it was a horrendous thing that happened, but people were felt together with that guy, and they followed him to death, essentially.
Well, see, that's
insane.
But the thing that I have with the comedy community, see, I think more damage has been done in the name of community than almost any other word. Because I never want, you know, when I first started, I never wanted to be one of a bunch of comedians. I wanted to be the best on every fucking lineup. I want to be the best. And if I'm not the best, I want to be the one that people remember. And I think a lot of comedians feel that way, but they don't say it. Because it's considered bad form. And, you know, you can only not say it up to a point before you just burst out and you go, what the fuck? Are you kidding me? I'm not on par with that shit. You know, so I don't give a fuck about the diversity quotas or any of this shit about fairness or whatever. Like, I want to be the best. And if I'm not the best, I want the person who gets the recognition to be a lot fucking better than me. Because I believe in that verticality.
Yeah.
Whereas now, you know, like the stuff that that's probably what's cost me so much work over the years, is that, you know, I haven't gone in and said I am the best, but I clearly do want to be the best.
Yeah.
You know? And
that's what we all want.
Yeah, I didn't get into this to be part of a wonderful community of comedians, because I think the wonderful community of comedians has done more damage to comedy than anything else.
How so?
Well, they book each other.
Yeah.
So first off, you got a business problem where you have. I'll give you an example of Konstantin Kisin. I'm not sure if you've heard of this guy.
Is this the guy from? Is that the guy from Trigonometry podcast?
Yeah, that's the guy. Yeah.
And he's Konstantin, and the other guy's name's Francis. Right?
Francis Foster. Yeah.
See, I've seen Francis at Angel Comedy before. Never seen Konstantin.
See, I never even knew who this guy was.
I only knew him from the Trigonometry podcast, which I think is excellent, but I've never actually seen his stand-up.
Well, so a year ago, we're on the Battle of Ideas panel about freedom of speech and comedy or something like that. I had no idea who this guy was. I thought he was a blogger. So I'm sitting in the backstage trying to compile my notes. He's like, hey, doing all this. You know, I was like, you know, okay, I'm working on my notes here. You know, we get on stage in the panel, and at one point in the panel, he says he would never book somebody like Will Franken because of the controversial nature, and in his opinion, audiences wouldn't come back. So here I've got a booker sitting next to me in a panel saying that he would never book me. So by default, he becomes my enemy, right? There's no common ground now. I can't turn around and say, oh, I totally understand your position. That's completely forgivable. He's the businessman, I'm the artist. Now he says this. So 1 month later, he's offered a free gig, and he has to sign a safe space agreement.
Safe space agreement?
Yeah. So he doesn't sign the safe space agreement.
What the fuck is a safe space agreement?
It was something like you can't make fun of trans or... But the point is, it wasn't paying anything, so he lost nothing. So the gesture was empty.
Yeah.
He doesn't sign this, and then all of this media hubbub, the BBC, Fox News had him on to talk about freedom of speech. This was a man that 1 month earlier said as a businessman he wouldn't book me. So, and I have not let him live that down since. And I've said to the Comedy Unleashed people that if you turn a blind eye to this stuff, what you're going to get is you're going to attract people like that who say the correct, like ooh trigger or ooh snowflake, but aren't changing anything fundamentally in comedy.
Yeah.
So this is a guy who has a desire to belong to say he wants to belong to this whatever this anti-woke thing is, but fundamentally he has nothing in himself.
Did he? So he said he didn't want to book you because people wouldn't come back.
I didn't even know he was a booker, but that's the problem. People wouldn't come back according to his estimation. What he really means, and I finally pressed him on this because once he got all this supposed controversy over this stuff, I ran into him and I said, "Well, you're brave now. 1 month later, now you're a brave man, so you're going to book me now." And to which he said, "It's not who you are on the stage; it's who you are off stage."
Right.
Even though I'd never met the guy before.
Yeah, that was the first thing he'd said to you, right?
Yeah, I'd never even met the guy before. So therefore, all he can be basing that off of is hearsay from other comedians. And other comedians saying things like, you can book him, but it might not reflect well on you.
Hang on a minute, but that contradicts what he said. He said that people wouldn't come back. So what? The audience members are in on rumors about Will Franken? Like what?
Exactly. Yeah. So he basically he wouldn't book me because so and so from another club might say, "Ooh, you booked Will Franken." It's cowardice, and I'm used to that. I've been used to it for 20 years. Everybody's got he makes fun of Islam or he does this or whatever their shit is, they're always going to have a problem. This was the first instance of somebody blatantly saying that they wouldn't do that. That would have been one thing and I would have let it go, but it was then a month later.
Right.
It's about freedom of speech. It's about freedom and then people not being allowed to say, like, hey, where the fuck were you?
Yeah.
So he did the trigonometry thing. I watched a few of those I watched one and I noticed that he called himself a cis in relation to a transaction. I thought, if you're supposedly against all this triggering stuff, why would you even use up a made up word like cis?
Yeah.
And then my girlfriend saw one that he did recently with this woman, Parker Posey.
Posey Parker, yeah.
Posey Parker, yeah. She's the actress, Parker Posey, actually.
Oh, okay.
Parker Posey, the indie actress.
Yeah, I think so.
I wonder if that's where she got her name, actually. But apparently, throughout that whole thing, he's saying that no, these people are real women. And you think, why? What? Yeah, because he says at one point
he does defend it a little bit. He comes from the angle of, and she's great.
Who, Posey Parker?
Yeah,
yeah. My girlfriend really loves her. Yeah,
it was just refreshing to see someone say, "No, then why do I?" Because he said now it's becoming the women, that trans women are going to be called women, and women have to take on this cis woman thing. It's like, why do I have to change
It's made up language.
It's nonsense.
And so he doesn't get to the fundamentals of that. But then he also said something rather revealing, which is that he knows a lot of people in comedy who are trans. Well, there's your answer right there. And he would like to get booked by them. That's why with Comedy Unleashed, you got a situation where one of the bookers is not a comedian and the other booker is a comedian. Now, the one who's not a comedian is, in my opinion, probably more prone to make decisions based on what they want to see versus so-and-so might get me a gig if I do this. There's too much compromise in comedy.
Isn't there right? Okay, so I get all of that. I'm just, so the moment I get booked on a few shows and I get paid a little bit in Canada, so I'm not into that yet. But my material is all controversial. I won't touch it unless it's controversial. I'm not allowed to talk about it. That's what I want to talk about. It comes from something in my childhood. I think my dad's involved. Isn't it? So it's landowners basically dictating what happens. So isn't there an opening then for a really lucrative, like if there's a club and it runs on these principles which are, if this person's funny and if you don't like it, you can go to the door basically. If you had people who were for that principle of free speech and funny is all that matters. Funny is all that matters. Fuck free speech. Right? All that matters is funny. That's a massive opportunity. I just see that as a huge opportunity. And the only barrier to it is owning the land. And because
that's a really good way to put it. I mean,
any publicity is good publicity.
It's landed aristocracy. And it's, first of all, I don't rate him as a comedian, but and the reason I keep hitting him back is because a couple people after the Greta thing went viral, they said, I've been trying to get you on with the trigonometry people, but they don't seem to like you.
See, I was going to say, I can't believe they haven't had you on.
Absolutely not. And the reason is because I don't let him live that down. So if I'm sitting next to somebody who says that they're not going to book me because they're controversial, I will not let that person live that down. And it's not even about him booking me at this point. It's just like, I'm not going to let you go around and pretend that you're a champion of free speech and all this stuff.
That's the American in you. Because the British thing to do is to go, well, now we can get on with it.
Now we can get on. Now he's part of the team now.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and there is that fiery Midwestern,
That's the thing I love about Americans.
Well, I appreciate that. It's gotten me into a lot of fucking trouble out here. But and like I said, like watching Stephen Fry, there's that part of me that's, I wish I could go back to that 16-year-old kid who would just be fucking honored. And like I said, when I came over here, I mean, I did the diversity shit, and I didn't hide, where I was coming from, not even politically, but just what I thought about bullshit.
Yeah.
And it's just when I started to open my mouth about the state of comedy, I mean, you can't diagnose a problem with comedy without saying what the hell's going on.
You can't diagnose a problem with anything without saying what's going on.
Yeah, you have
the truth.
You have to actually specifically say, what the issue is. And, so some of these people that says with this, I thought you get on with the trigonometry people. And I said, look, just because somebody says snowflake doesn't mean we're kindred spirits. He's just, like he says in his thing, he said, I'll be as a business person. At the end of the day, he's a business person, and he has calculated. Just as a lot of it. I mean, I imagine this day coming for a long time, that eventually there will come a time when people are so dreadfully bored with the predictable politics of something that there'll be this other thing, a reaction to that, and that will become its own fashion. But I didn't think it would be so blatant.
Yeah.
As all this,
Yeah, it's so funny, because I was going to say that I thought you would have been on there. The fact that they haven't had you on, that's interesting. I like the fact that you will. That's something I really admire. I think everyone should have this. It's having a backbone, having principles. And if someone, that isn't just saying something, that is affecting your life.
Yeah.
Because you're a comedian and you want to play shows. And I think it's just, I get the business side of it.
Yeah.
But I think they're missing a trick, because we're at the time now where the real thing matters. The poses don't matter as much because they're not making any actual changes.
But you got to make sure the audiences are smart too, because the Spectator wrote about this stuff. I've completely turned I don't know if you know Spiked magazine, but
Spiked magazine, yeah, they've also got a podcast as well.
I've completely turned off of those guys because, and I've written a few things for them, but yeah, I completely turned off of them because I've seen these. What's happened is they've become so politicized that if a comedian comes out and does, a non-intellectual joke about a different race, that they'll bark like trained seals, and they'll write a big article about freedom, and without actually vetting or without actually asking the fundamental question: are these people even funny, or are they just essentially doing what the left wing was doing?
Right.
With completely different catchphrases.
Yeah.
And, we'll see how far that freedom of speech stuff carries. When I keep going after the people who are saying that they support freedom of speech, or what, it's just so fucking reductive. And I remember one of the people from Comedy Unleashed, I was doing a gig with him in Brighton, and I brought up that story. And I could tell it made them really uncomfortable. They were fidgeting like a politician. The kissing story.
Yeah.
And I just said, this is the person who said he wouldn't book me based on the controversy element. And this is it's not just hypocrisy, it's a complete about face.
Yeah.
And I could tell how nervous and fidgety they were, just even, because they're mates. As you say,
yeah.
it's landowners, and at one point, this is a guy who's talking about, Comedy Unleashed, and he says, I like to build bridges, not burn them. And that is such a fucking political answer. I couldn't believe it. And I wasn't asking the guy to go, ape shit and tear down the walls or whatever. I was just saying, like, this is my story, and it's making you really uncomfortable. Because they're so heavily invested right now in the anti-woke stuff. That's it, and they do that because the Spectator gives them columns, and it becomes a newsworthy story. But I have never said anything like this in my life. But I read a Spectator article on this, and I thought, this is run by stupid old white men. And I sounded like an SJW when I said, I couldn't believe that came out of my mouth. But
because there's some truth to that. It's just it became such a catchphrase, like you say, that it's
it's like I imagine a stupid old white man going, this is a revolution. What's the revolution? Somebody doing a tweet who's not really that person making a joke about veganism.
Right.
This is Jonathan Swift to you. What's wrong with you people?
Yeah.
This has all made everybody even stupider than they were.
If they're social justice warriors, now you have free speech warriors.
Free speech warriors. Yeah.
It's the same. They're just a mirror. It's it's the whole system creating an opposite to dumb it down. Whereas reality, I find that reality isn't really like that. And when I say reality, are people who don't have a vested interest, so people who aren't, you know, a university or in a business or, you know, where their livelihood doesn't depend on them having a certain political view.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not political correctness now, it's just correctness. You know?
I had this one, I told you I was going through some issues back in May, and this one fucker who's a regular at that night.
Comedy Unleashed.
Yeah, it does attract political people, you know, and they're creeps, man. I mean, this one fucker here was talking about a 50,000 pound contract and all this. Yeah, your life is going to change, mate. And everything was political. So he called me. I had legitimate fucking questions about finances and stuff. And he go, I don't know if you saw the story about what China's doing. And I said, man, I am not a political stooge. Fucker texted me the other day, just, you have time later for a conversation. And I said, can you sum up in a message what this is about? He goes, well, it would involve you having to prove to your friends you're not some secret Tory Remainer. I said, I'm not a fucking character in an Ian Rankin novel. But this political thing has given people, I don't know. I think, you know, their inner lives are so empty now, but it gives them a sense of like Cloak and Dagger, or whatever.
Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy.
Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, and I'm like, you know.
Everyone's a James Bond. Like, can you prove you're not? Oh, give me a break. Is this about comedy? Like, can we? I just want to be laughing with people.
Or basically, what's the job?
You
have a job.
More to the point, You
know, I'm working class. I don't have time to be. But the truth is, this guy's nothing. I mean, he's a hanger-on out there who's got, you know, all the. He came down here one day and he brought a bag full of Brexit party pamphlets, and he says, you know, people have. So I'm not going to pass these out. They went right in the bin.
Yeah.
You know, but it was weird because he had no. He said he was a conservative, and he was polling for the Brexit party. And I said, you don't have any qualms about the Brexit party? None. Now, I can understand that if you were not a conservative, but I said, if you're a conservative, you don't have any qualms about it. I can understand if you're still going to vote for them with reservations.
Right.
But it just seemed like a stooge. You know, and that's what I was saying before about this. And I made the mistake too in 2016. I said it's left-wing comedy. I didn't know, but it wasn't. It was bland.
Yeah.
And so, as predictable as these comedians were on so many other levels, you know, my crazy life, my mental health disorder, their politics were predictable too. That's a bit Daily Mail. It was all predictable. But the mistake was calling it left-wing comedy. So if you set up an antidote to those nights and you call it like, this is the place to go if you don't want this left-wing drivel, you inadvertently create a very politicized night where you attract lunatics like that with their Brexit party pamphlets, and comedy becomes political. Everything becomes a means to some political end. Like, yeah, we'll get you out. I mean, this fucker called up one day. He says, how would you like your own radio show? And I say, yes, that would be great.
Right.
What am I going to do? Lie? I would love to have my own radio show. And then he says, because there's a guy running for Brexit Party MP, and I thought if you sat down and interviewed him, I said, no, you're not going to tell me what guest to have. I mean, it's a hypothetical here, but I don't know what these people get out of it.
Well, I think that a lot of people, I've met so I lived in hostels for 4 years, and with backpackers who have no money.
Yeah.
And you see all sorts when you're there. And I was very nice. I left at like 28, and I was a child still, embarrassingly. But you meet a lot of people who offer you lots of things because they know you're in a certain position.
Sure.
And I think that some people just like to act like the big dick in the room.
Yeah.
If someone's not giving me the money straight away, I'm like, you're not serious
of course.
about it, because you should be respecting what you're getting from the person, and you should actually see the value in it up front as an investment. So when people talk, and I've thought, I've met this person, and there was one guy who owned a music school. I've been a musician like my entire life pretty much, and I'm making this much money from my guitar lessons, and I own a school in LA. I'm like, LA, that's where the best metal bands come from. Oh, great. And I'm going around. It basically got me to do a bunch of work for him for like nothing. This when it came to billing the guy, then all of a sudden he disappeared, and it was a great lesson for me. But I think some people love to just talk. And look, we've all done coke before, so we love to sit around and do that stuff. But you know what? I want, when it's over, I want to actually sit down and do something and make something which is going to last and actually make something.
Yeah.
You know, my favorite thing about this is I'm getting time to spend time with you.
Yeah.
This is going to be out there for everyone to hear forever.
For eternity.
Yeah, for eternity.
Until
It's amazing.
Until the internet
Until the
blows
internet
up.
shuts down, like it has in Iran at the moment, turning the internet off.
Yeah.
You need to be doing the thing for the thing, but when someone's coming to you with an offer, you got to be serious straight away. Otherwise, this is just circle jerk.
It's like that scene in Annie Hall where I've been going back to this a lot lately, where Carol Kane is in bed and he doesn't want to have sex with her anymore, and he's like, I just don't understand. The Warren Commission said that it was a single bullet, but it's not. I mean, and she goes, "You're using the JFK assassination not to go to bed with me." And I think that's it. Like you know, my dad did that, I'm sure, and with the news.
Yeah.
Politics was a way to avoid intimacy or anything real. And I think that's where we are now. These people.
Fuck, that's a really good point.
Their lives are so fucking empty right now that they need the. And I was excited too. 2016.
Holy shit, I haven't thought of it that way before.
Brexit and Trump came along, and I thought that's.
I got excited for the first time ever.
I was first time I've ever voted.
Yeah,
I cast my vote for Trump.
Yeah, I don't believe in governments, leaders, but Trump came along and I thought, okay, let's have you lot see. From my point of view, it was like, you lot can now see how crazy your system is, because your system gave you this, and political correctness gone out the window. Grab her by the pussy, it's all over. No, he's fine. I thought it was hilarious, brilliant. I actually like the guy. But really what I like is he highlights hypocrisy, and there's nothing I hate more than hypocrisy. But it was the first time I really got involved. I thought, so we've got first opportunity for like a madman to be in there, or someone that they don't like. So a madman from that perspective, I don't think he's crazy. And then Brexit, I thought, wow, first time ever we can vote for less government.
Yeah.
Amazing. So, like you, I got interested again. Though I
thought it was all over. I thought it would be all over. I thought after those two votes, and I thought dun 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 dun. Dun. And I think I even said at one point, I said my work here is done now. I thought like all of this stuff I've been doing for 20 years now has led to this moment where we're just all going to have to figure out what to do, because like unlike these Johnny Come Latelys, I have been taken on this shit for, I lived in San Francisco for 9 years. That's where I got started. This shit that was the epicenter of all this bullshit that has found its way over here. And I didn't set out to do it on some kind of political thing. Like, it was just a lot of what I was seeing from the left was really stupid at the time and very easily satirizable. It's just nobody was doing it. So like the Johnny Come Latelys are coming around now going, did you hear about this shit? And when Jordan Peterson's book came out, everybody was sending me links and I wasn't reading any of them. I was like, I know, I lived in San Francisco. I don't need to revisit this shit. I know what's happening out here, but it's almost like they've just either woken up to this or, so it's in some ways the anti-woke people are woke as well.
It's all the same thing.
It's all the same fucking thing. Yeah.
That's why I was really interested in Trump, because you've got the left and the right of politics, right? And we're morally correct because we have these principles, although we don't abide by them. We don't apply them evenly. And those people are crazy / evil or whatever, and they're both saying it. And you're like, well, this is split down the center of my family, so was one side evil? No, of course not, right? We're just people, and we're getting involved in this game. I thought Trump will really display how crazy the game is.
Yeah. Which he did.
He did, but only to people like you and I who knew how crazy it was.
And see, I'm very naive. I thought with Brexit, I thought that's just it. And in a couple of days, you leave the European Union. That's it.
Oh, yeah.
How hard could it be?
Well, you put it.
How hard could it be just to walk away from the
45th referendum?
45th referendum, yeah.
It's when you said that. That's what I mean about your style. So for me, to get that joke across, I'd have to tell a big story, whatever. But you just put a voice on. I say just, but I mean is
but if you just said it, if you just said it in a normal voice, we're going to have the 45th referendum. I mean, maybe I didn't know how funny that line was, but a couple of people have quoted that. Yeah, I have a bit of naivete, and I think all good satirists are optimists as well. People misconstrue satirists as curmudgeonly, old, bitter, cynical people, but that's not actually true. A satirist wouldn't do what he's doing unless he thought that there was something better, or when Chaucer wrote the Canterbury Tales, he was satirizing the church, but only in as much as to say that this is not real Christianity, and if you step backwards a little bit, you might get to something closer to that. It's actually very old-fashioned as well. And so the naive hayseed in me thought, with Brexit, you just leave the European Union. You don't need, 3.5 years later, you don't need to have a debate about it. You just leave. I thought. And then with Trump, I should have known better. I mean, of course, because I know the American style, that they'll just keep coming at him. And I was fucked up because the BBC World Service had me up to do an interview a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I saw one of you when the Sadiq Khan balloon was on. I saw you were on that.
That was Sky, yeah.
That was Sky, right?
Sky's had me on a few times, and this BBC woman, she got a hold of me. She says, and she was talking about comedy. They had to do research calls to make sure you're not a lunatic. So she about two calls and blah blah blah. And it was all about comedy and structure and stuff. And as soon as I got to the studio, the whole thing was political, climate change and Donald Trump and impeachment and all that and.
Impeachment. Don't get me started.
But I felt like they tricked me. I felt like they tricked me into.
Yeah,
we're just going to focus mostly on maybe a little bit about the political. The whole thing was political. I haven't even listened to it. It was just like, because she was saying the science is settled, and I go like, I honestly don't give a shit. I don't give a fuck if the science settled. I don't care because I'm working class. And when I go to Ryanair to buy a ticket, and they say you can pay £20 more for the greener option, I don't give a fucking rat's ass about the greener option because I saved £20.
Yeah, well, it's the same thing with environmentalists, right? They are always well off people who aren't living in reality, right? So it's, they can afford to have, it's like, well, how many trees do you have in your garden? Because I don't have a garden.
Yeah.
So, of course, you care about it but like people are living in... horrendous conditions comparatively, right? We must always remember we live in the West. This is great. Yeah. But then you look at, like, I went through India a few years back. Yeah. 2 days outside of Delhi, I hit the smog. Yeah. Like, okay, so what the fuck are we going to do about these people? Because they're going through their industrial revolution and their crazy growth there. Are you going to go out there, and the right way to do it is to go out there and go, all right, we're going to give you green energy solutions and do it, right? But they're not going to do that. What they want to do is the rich people over here, they need to pay their fair share. I mean, all this stuff just drives me crazy. And look, the science is settled, whatever. I'm not going to disagree with scientists. I'm not going to say, therefore, it's definitely the truth. But I'm going to say a smart person would go, they've put a lot more work in than I have. I care about okay, fine, the Earth's going to end in what do you want to do about it? Are you talking about literally, because the world could end tomorrow if you stop everyone selling petroleum.
Yeah, well, what kind of world are they presenting to us? It's actually a world where I'd probably slit my wrist anyway. Because they're talking about no planes, no trains, some fucking little girl, a spoiled little girl.
Yeah, yelling at adults.
And this is look, she's 16 years old, but my definition of childhood ends a lot earlier than some people. I mean, some people now they live with their fucking parents until they're shit. Say you were.
Well, I'm 36, but I live in Canada and I'm currently staying with my mum. But it's fine. I've lived out of my. I know what you mean.
In America, they had something like the health insurance that was going to cover kids until they were 26, and I was like,
they're not kids when they're 26.
They're not kids. This girl's 16. When I was 16, I was fucking rebelling and dyeing my hair and shaving.
Yeah, most people. Me and all my mates, it was 18 university. That's when we moved out.
Yeah, and she's spoiled. She's a spoiled little girl, and parents, affluent artist types, and.
You've stolen my dreams.
You've stolen my dreams, my child.
How dare you?
Yeah, she's a lunatic. But she's been made crazy, and with this autism diagnosis too. I was thinking about this the other day. There's kids, because I take a lot of trains, obviously, and this kid gets on with the mother. It's a crowded train. She's fidgeting, not over the top, but just squirming around a little bit. The mother pulls out a fucking iPad and turns on Peppa the Pig with no headphones, and I say, "Would you turn that off?" And she's giving me stick. And, the truth is, they say this autism thing is on the rise, but what really is it? Because none of this spectrum autism, they can't do the Rain Man equations. They're not like writing symphonies or anything like that. They're just spoiled brats. And so if you take a child and the child fidgets in a slight moment of discomfort, you give her an iPad without any headphones, you're saying to that girl, anytime anything gets uncomfortable, the world revolves around you. And that seems to be a lot of this fucking autism diagnosis. So with her, it's like, let's get rid of the autism thing. Let's get rid of the youth thing. And let's talk about them. Because what they've done is they've done what the jihadis do when they stick the kids up front and the fights against Israel.
It's a child shield essentially, because you can't criticize that entire movement because you're beating a child up in their minds. It's violence against a child if you joke. And she's put herself on TV. The second you do that, I don't care how old you are, you're up for ridicule.
That's it.
We were talking about the guy in Canada at the moment. I mean, talking about free speech.
Mike something.
Yeah, I'm so bad with names.
He was funny. I liked his routine.
Well, his bit was there was a kid who had cancer. He was kind of a Make-A-Wish kid. Something like that, where he got paraded all over television, a load of money was raised, blah, 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 blah. And then he didn't die.
He didn't die, yeah.
So then his bit was, and I'm obviously going to butcher it, but he's like, oh, I want my money back, basically, was his punchline, something like that. And he's been pulled in front of the Canadian human rights.
I think he said, didn't the kid want to sing before the Pope, or am I getting that wrong?
Something like that, yeah.
And I think he also said that he wasn't even a good singer. He wasn't even the best voice. But yeah, I remember the line was something like, and he hasn't even died yet, and it's years later or something like that, which I thought was pretty funny. And he did step up in 2016 when I had my fake awards for bad comedy, and he presented one. That might have been because he was going to Canada the next day, or it might have been because he believed in it or whatever. But yeah, I got to know him very briefly that year, but I wish I could remember his name.
Yeah, I'll put it in afterwards. I'll put it in the notes at the end.
Yeah, but
it's an interesting time, isn't it? Should we break and have a quick smoke?
Yeah, let's do that.
Sound
Man.
good?
Yeah. Let me hit the toilet as well. You want another coffee?
Oh, that would be great. Thank you. I just want to have the conversation. I want to share the conversation. Yeah. With traveling, I've met so many cool people around the world, and a lot of them in Australia.
Yeah.
And they'll never meet my friends, but now they have, because they've heard when I go over there, I'll do a podcast with like one of my close friends, Nash from Zimbabwe. Yeah. And me and him have hours of conversation, and then my buddy Sean from America knows Nash now, and then my friends back home, so we can have a conversation, and I can just drop a name. They're like, oh yeah, I know Nash.
Yeah.
I've been in on a 3-hour conversation with the guy. Okay. It's a nice way of bringing people together when it's a good use of technology, I think.
You travel a lot.
Yeah, quite a lot, yeah.
I used to love it. And then I moved down here.
Yeah.
In London, I'd go anywhere. Because I couldn't take living in a room and nobody spoke English, and I was just losing my mind. And I'd go anywhere for fucking 50 quid. Now that I'm in Folkestone, it's the day I have to travel. I just wake up in the morning. I feel like I'm going to school. Like fuck,
it's a lot of work.
I've lost the excitement about it. Yeah, I hate to say that, but I hope to get it back. But
it comes and goes. To be honest with you, because there's different types of travel, right? I'm going up for work, and that way the train journey's a pain in the ass. But if you're traveling across a country with people you've just met, all of a sudden it can be fun until it's not fun. When you've done that for 4 years, you're sick of the same conversation over and over again. So I've been through that, and now I'm like, okay, I like this.
Yeah.
Getting the train here, I'm going to meet someone new, we're going to have a conversation. Traveling again, I came down to London from Liverpool to do this. I'm enjoying traveling around England more than I was enjoying Southeast Asia last time I was there, just because it's like something different and you get bored.
I don't think I've had a holiday. I think that's part of the problem.
Oh yeah, when was the next time
I don't think I've ever had a holiday.
Last time, sorry.
But I don't think I've ever had one.
Right.
But then again, with this lifestyle, it's hard to tell what's a holiday and what's not, because I'll have 7 days without a gig and I'll just sit around here, smoke weed, and watch Peep Show.
Right.
So is that a holiday? But as far as like going somewhere just for the purpose of,
Yeah, it's weird because I was working as a software engineer. Excuse me, and
so I'm chain smoking, as you noticed.
No, that's fine.
I'm definitely a chain smoker. So.
Oh, you are?
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah.
I go through 40,
I don't really
40
notice.
50 a day. Yeah.
50 a day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was on the vape for 4 months. I had a vape, and it knocked me down from about 40 to 2 a day.
It's incredible.
So impressed. 1 in the morning, 1 at night. I was like, this is easy. This is fun.
So why did you stop vaping?
Little things happen, like the batteries run low, and you're like, what a ball ache. Just get a pack of fags or whatever. And then once you're in that mindset that it's just...
Yeah. So was it difficult to transition away from the cigarettes, though? So it would just be as simple as you having a vape there and then you do it?
Because I'll tell you that with the vape, that's the only thing in... God, what is it now? I've started smoking at 14. I'm 46 now, so whatever the maths are on that. And that's how long I've been smoking.
32 years?
32 years. And the only thing that even came close to, I thought, being a viable option of quitting was the vape. And I saw the early prototypes that looked like cigarettes in Missouri. And I thought, I could possibly pull it off with these. So I always had in the back of my mind, like, get a vape. And a friend of mine from America sent me one of those fat ones with the... And I've just found it so fun to get different flavors. And
you need to get back into it because it's way healthier for you. Yeah.
Yeah. No matter what they're saying now.
Look, at the end of the day, you're burning plant material and all the other stuff which is in there
tar,
constantly. I mean, look, if I smoke weed, I like to do it through a bong, right?
Yeah.
So, but I still have to clean the bong out, and there's goo and all sorts in there, which is why I now go on the vape.
Yeah.
Now, I still have to clean the vape out.
That's right.
Nowhere near as much.
Yeah.
So when you're vaporizing something, because you're not burning it, it's just no carcinogens in there, way fewer. You're going to have an issue with these big clouds that people are puffing with like vape liquid. You know, there's some issues with that. I mean, you don't want to be putting a lot of anything through your lungs.
Yeah.
But it's way healthier than smoking.
Way healthier.
I mean, if you can
much
go
more affordable.
If you can go down from 50 to 2.
That was a miracle. I was really surprised. It was like, do one in the morning, then hit this fucking thing all day.
We need to look into it because I think it'd be way better for you.
Yeah.
Because it's just longevity, and you'll probably notice your lungs recovering, and you've been able to like. You'll be used to, like, I have a terrible problem with eating. Like the other night, I ate a Cadbury's bar this big.
Yeah.
And I bought one for my brother because I was like, I want this all to myself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I ate a lot of that stuff. Yeah. And I noticed that, like, I have a tendency to binge on stuff. And when I'm in the binge mindset and I've, like, put a load of weight on or whatever, I don't realize how tired I feel until I get out of it.
Yeah.
Because I'm used to it. So it's really, really strange. It's like once I think you'd see a lot of benefits just from, like, lung capacity and stuff like that. It's definitely worth doing.
I just remember the price. I mean, the money I was saving was astronomical.
And that's another one, right?
But then just to not really feel it, to feel it, because I want to smoke all the time, man. I'm constantly smoking, and but just to wake up in the morning, have that one, and then one right before you go to bed is a little reward.
Yeah,
because cigarettes have ceased to be a reward for me for quite some time.
Okay,
it's like Frank Zappa called them food.
Yeah,
remember that, because he was very critical of drugs. And a reporter tried to catch him out. They said that, you're really putting down drugs all the time, but aren't cigarettes drugs? And he goes, no, it's food. And I say, that makes sense to me. I'll go with that. It's a food.
What about Chris Morris on the drugs episode of Brass Eye? My favorite, my most quotable line, the cake one, yeah. But it's, you know, when they do the kind of, this week's episode is about drugs, and then they start going with all the facts as they do on all these shows, and it just clips to it. Chris Morris, after doing, like, killed so many children this year and all these statistics, and he goes, some people say alcohol's a drug. Drinks it. It's not a drug, it's a drink. It just goes to the next thing. Yeah. And that's what everyone's attitude is.
That's when he ties off too, doesn't he?
How about this? The skag.
Yeah.
I inject about once a week, purely on a recreational basis. Fine.
I saw some story about heroin abuse in Scotland, and they want to have control over their drug laws in Scotland, and they want to allow heroin addicts to take the drugs from the streets and shoot them up in the hospital so they can be monitored.
Right.
And then there was this Christian group that you got to get the news, you got to have the conflict, right? So they put the Christian group up going, but however, there's a Christian group that thinks the idea is to have abstinence. And it's just weird how they sum that story up, because I think the logical thing would be to go for abstinence. I don't see what gets solved if you let junkies come in off the streets. It's kind of, you know what it is? It's kind of fatalistic nihilism to suggest that, well, they're going to shoot heroin till the day they die, and nobody ever got off heroin before. So,
I mean, I get the argument of, look.
But the Christians are meant to look silly, like, what do you mean? You want them to stop doing heroin entirely? It's not possible.
Yeah.
You're born a heroin addict. You know, it's just like that.
Yeah.
Crazy, man.
It's weird, isn't it? Because I think that having somewhere, because the major worry is that you're going to die from doing it, or sharing a needle or whatever and catching stuff. So if you can mitigate a load of risks that go along with it, certainly if I wanted to get off something, I'd like to have some kind of option to do that. Maybe it's not the best option. I personally, for me, it's slowly stopping things, which does it for me. For some people, it's immediate abstinence. I know that my mum, when she quit cigarettes, she just completely quit overnight. Whereas some people, they reduce it like by 1 cigarette a month. Yeah. So, I mean,
if I was down to 2, to go from 2 to 0 would be...
Yeah, that's the next
step. A lot
step.
easier than going from 50 to 0.
Would you want to go to 0?
Oh, absolutely. I think so. I think I've smoked enough in my life.
Okay.
I mean, there's nothing I can look back on and say, damn, I never got to smoke in that situation. I've smoked in every possible situation, and
Yeah. if you've done it before by getting a vape, I'd say that you've already got practice at that.
Yeah.
So you're learning more about yourself, and you'll find out whether you can do it twice. Maybe you get down to one. Who knows, right?
I'm sure it could.
Yeah.
Get that thing. And the problem is those government scare stories now that are coming out about popcorn lung and shit like that.
Right. Yeah.
It does give you pause, but I did resent
black lung.
I resented when they made that illegal to vape. So they lumped it in with smoking, because I thought you've been bitching about people smoking for years. You finally find something that, in my opinion, is the most viable option to quitting. Hypnotherapy, whatever, if it works for some people. But
right.
For the vast majority of people, that's a viable option, and all of a sudden you're going to make it illegal.
Yeah, it's the most successful method of getting people off smoking on a mass scale ever.
Yeah.
And it's better than 12-step programs, it's better than all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And do you know what they don't like about it? Yeah. It's the puritanical, you're taking a drug in, or you're still taking a drug in through that, whereas you should just quit. So I think that some people see it as smoking still, because you're altering your consciousness in some way.
Most of that message is coming from non-Christian organizations.
Yeah.
Bureaucrats. Mm. It's the right thing to do. What do you mean? You're a bureaucrat. What's your moral standpoint?
Exactly. What are you basing it on? Yeah. I think you should do that. Get back on the vape and take it from there.
Yeah.
100%. My buddy knows a lot about it, and he's in the Philippines right now. Big fan of yours, my mate Kev. And he has gone from smoking a lot to just vaping constantly. And he knows the ins and outs about which is the best one to get. And he's done all the research into what the best type of vape liquids are.
Yeah.
So worrying about the popcorn lung thing. My buddy, he got very sick a few years back.
Yeah.
And he did a lot of research into the different kind of cancer treatments that he could take. Okay. So he was getting people to come around to his house and administer certain drugs because he found, he was in the Philippines. So actually the best way of doing it is through this, and I sorted out myself.
Yeah.
So anyway, super smart dude, and he's looked a lot into it. He knows what the best vapes are. And he's also used this as a way of getting off smoking. So I can put him in touch with you, and he can tell you what he's learned from it. I'm sure he'd love to let you know.
I mean, the long-term goal was to, because the thing is, I rarely give any thought to the body.
Likewise.
I'm in my head all the time, man. I'm always imagining shit, and for better or for worse, sometimes I terrify myself with fears of stuff that's never going to happen. Then sometimes I'm on a creative role, but I rarely give any thought to health and the body. And they told me I had prostate cancer treatment this summer, and they diagnosed me 2 years before. And I really didn't. It was funny because when they told me, there wasn't that feeling, oh my God, cancer. I didn't have any of that. I was like, okay. There's a kids in the hall sketch. I know we talked about that on the way up.
Yeah.
There, because the Canadians, man. I mean, in my opinion, there's a lot that I learned from Canadian comedy with Kids in the Hall and Jim Carrey.
I'm gonna have to check that out. Yeah.
Yeah. They who else is SCTV? I'm not a huge fan of that program. I know you must know SCTV.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Martin Short was a big influence on me. He was so hyperactively strange. Yeah. Where did I go from the Canadian thing? There's something to do with
treatment,
the health.
The cancer treatment you were talking about?
Cancer, yeah, there's Kids in the Hall sketch. So there's one where Dave Foley goes in to see Scott Thompson, who's the doctor. And the doctor says, you've got inoperable cancer. And he said, oh, okay, cool. No, maybe you didn't hear me. You're going to die of cancer. It's inoperable. And he said, no. And then he said, maybe you don't understand. He said, yeah, okay, all right. I got to catch a bus. So is this going to take long? He says, I know I've got cancer. And he says, maybe you don't understand. You go, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know you want me to do a song and dance. Okay. Ooh, I'm so young. I got my whole life. And then the punchline is when he finally leaves, the doctor says, you know what? Fuck you. And so he leaves, and the doctor says, maybe I'm losing my touch. And he pulls out a mirror and he rehearses, you're going to die. And the kids in the, that's how I was when they told me I had prostate cancer. I was like, all right, so what do I do now? Get a nurse or something? Or... I was more afraid of the operations.
You didn't get existential kind of fuck. You weren't thinking.
No, I think because I felt like I've done everything that I wanted to do in a weird way. So I feel that sometimes. My fantasy was to live in England and do comedy in England, and I've done that, and I've pissed off a lot of people in the process, and I've made a lot of people happy. I couldn't see what else I wanted. I'm. If I was still in my 20s, I'd say, I want my BBC show.
Yeah.
But now that I'm 46 and I've seen, I've had so many interactions with the BBC, they're just not looking for what it is that I do at the moment, and I just have to accept that. I can't really.
Yeah, that time that you grew up with of great British comedy and creativity, and I heard you said recently that listen to you on another interview when you said when Python went in that did. What was it the BBC said? That they like to keep ahead of the curve,
like to
or
stay
something?
one step ahead of public opinion.
One step ahead of public opinion, yeah. And it's kind of not really like that at the moment in terms of creativity.
It's what are they doing? We'll do that too.
Yeah.
And give it a different title. Yeah. It's an American thing. It's an American structure. And I found that out the hard way in LA. Some people at one point approached me to write a sitcom. They got an idea from Japanese television. They wanted me to Americanize it. It was the story of a family of mannequins, which I thought was could be funny, And I wrote little scenarios like there was a mannequin who worked at a department store, but he's being replaced by a robot because they can stand still quicker than mannequins, and had all these little sub stories. Awesome. Yeah, it was fun. And when I was done, I put my name on the written by Will Franken, and they sent me something in the post called a certificate of authorship, which means that I signed that over and they technically get to own that. And I went fucking ballistic. Because I don't know about the legal terminology.
Yeah.
And then they told me that they would assign me a showrunner since I hadn't written for television before. So there'd be somebody there to kind of run the show with me, and I'd be assigned to a team, and I didn't like any of that shit.
You wanted full creative control, basically.
Of course, yeah. And then so when I come out here and I realized that they don't really have that here either now, because they borrowed from that American setup of a team of writers hashing out ideas, and then a consensus of about 10 people kind of come to an agreement on what kind of might be funny to work in a thing. And they didn't. You take David Rennick from One Foot in the Grave. One fucking man wrote that entire series.
Yeah, that's how you get the best stuff, because
Absolutely.
it's a mind uninhibited.
Yeah,
I don't want to know. Look, there's very few things that like groups of people can do together. Look, a group of people can build the pyramids, and they can build bridges, and they can build countries, right? Yeah. But when it comes to art, I don't want the art from the minds of a million. Yeah. I want to know about the individual who made it, because that's what you're discovering through somebody's artwork. Yeah. I'm sure if you got all the best painters ever to do the big... imagine we're going to get all the best painters right here, so Picasso and all the rest of them, I don't know them, and they're going to paint Sydney Bridge together. You'd be like, I'm not interested in that. I'm more interested in, seeing what his room was like.
There was a story today, just today, about the Turner Prize. I don't know if you saw this.
Oh, I didn't know.
All 4 people that were shortlisted mutually agreed that they would all be the winner, and that they wouldn't have to choose between the 4 of them because of today's harsh political climate, where things are so polarized. It's good for people to come together.
Yeah,
and they had 2 of the so-called winners, live streamed from Margate.
It's bullshit. You're not. If there's no winner, you're all losers.
Exactly.
So I was thinking about this earlier.
It was the same shit though. The woman was saying because the rise of right-wing politics. It was, you were afraid of fucking losing, and you know it.
You're afraid of losing, and also, like you were saying earlier, that getting into comedy, you want to be the best at it. And I was going to say to you, like, oh, so you want to be the winner in the situation? Well, winning isn't allowed anymore.
No, it's not.
Participation medals, and we don't keep scoring this football game because they're children and they can't handle losing. You're like, it's because you're not teaching them to lose.
That's
losing's growing.
That's one thing I realized about this burgeoning free speech pushback thing is that it's just another movement, and movements are bullshit. At the end of the day, they're very anti-art. We don't care what the individual says, as long as so you can take people who flip on a dime. I'm not going to book you. Oh, wait a second! They gave me a free speech, a safe space agreement, and I didn't sign it. I'm Danton in the General Assembly in France in the French Revolution. This is gonna echo through eternity. This move I've just made. Exactly, and you point out the hypocrisy to people who are really entrenched in that movement. And you say, what about this individual? Yeah, well, it doesn't matter. You've got to break a few omelets. You break a few eggs to make an omelet. And it really is actually paradoxically communistic. So even though it supposedly stands for free speech, it's actually kind of rooted in a communist outlook on the world. It doesn't really matter what the individual does as long as
the group moves forward.
As long as we did that big thing, even if it's pushing back against the climate change nonsense.
Yeah.
It's the death of the individual.
The death of the individual, and that's what art is, right? Art is exploring humanity.
I think so.
That's all it is. So you're learning about the artist through their art. That's all it is. And you can't do that about a group of people unless it's hard enough to do something by yourself. This is one of the reasons I got into comedy, because I've been a drummer for like 22 years or something. Yeah. Moved to Australia to make it. Yeah. Got in a few bands out there. There was one band that I got in, and we were meant to go on this tour, and then we fired the singer, and then we got a new singer in, and it was like auditions for the singer. We couldn't agree. It all fell apart. I was in bed for 3 days. Felt like a relationship had ended because I was in love.
Depressed. You were depressed.
It was my life, right? And I just thought, oh, you know what? It is good, but I want to do stand-up because then it's just me, and I don't have to deal with them affecting it. Yeah. When that works, it's great, but it's harder for that to work because it's not just about an artist making something. It's about them having to work with other people. And for it still to have value at the end of it, which is a rare thing. There's good musicians that do it. There's great collaborations. There's great skit like Monty Python.
I wished I had it sometimes. There's sometimes where I do lament the fact that, when I watch Fry and Laurie, it's like, because there were only 2 guys in my life that I ever wanted to work with. And we were a group of little misfits in my small town of 19,000 in the Midwest.
It's in Missouri, right?
In Missouri, yeah. We watched Kids in the Hall, Monty Python. We had a band, that shit. But we were the outcasts. We dyed our hair and, shaved our heads and wore trench coats. So years before Columbine, we were the little, my friend would get a copy of Allen Ginsberg's Howl, and we would read it, and, we'd get into the beats, all this. They were very influential on me, and they happened to be 2 of the funniest guys I ever knew. Right. And they had we did one, I said, we should write a sketch review. And that was the first show I think I ever did in terms of comedy, where the 2 of us got together. We called ourselves Mansford, Holmesley, Mansford, and Mastodon Urethra. As my big friend Danny, who's since passed on, he wanted to be called Mastodon Urethra. And then my friend Matt and I, we were 16 at the time, we were just kids, we used to see each other and go, Mansford, Holmesley, Mansford. Right. It was just nonsense. It wasn't about anything. And I said, let's write a sketch review, get a little coffee house somewhere, and do it. And, there must have been probably 15 of our friends. It was, but I loved it. And I don't remember much of the bits, except I know my friend Matt was doing Louis Farrakhan, talking about the game of pool, like which games were racist.
Oh, nice.
When you play pool, it's about, you got to take the white ball, knocks the black ball. Yeah. But what we got to be playing is bowling, because you take the black ball and knock down a whole lot of white pins. And then we did a Hindu version of It's a Wonderful Life, and crazy shit like that. But
that's awesome.
I wanted to, years later, people sometimes ask me, said, "Did you ever want to collaborate with somebody?" And I said, "Yeah, those 2." But Danny wanted to be a rock star, and Matt wanted to be a painter, and I was the only one who wanted to keep going with this comedy thing. And since then, I've never that I felt like I could connect. Yeah, that we could shit talk each other if we needed to, and say that's not fucking funny, or this is good, or whatever. We had a way of, for that brief period. Yeah. And
it's rare. You're demonstrating how rare it is to meet people that you can work with on that level, which click with you. Because if you're going to do something artistic, you need to click. You need to be on the same page. And the people you grew up with, especially during influential periods in your life, and also times where, for most people anyway, you're less inhibited at that age. And even for very outgoing people who do stand-up or whatever, you're never going to be as uninhibited as you are when you're a child. This is why children learn so quickly. Yeah. They learn a language without thinking about it. Partly because their brains are so ready to absorb it, but you know why else? Because they don't have any shame or anything. Yeah. They don't feel embarrassed to say a word. Yeah. Because it's cute. They don't even realize what cute is. It's immersion, yeah. Whereas for me, if I try and speak another language, like I speak Farsi, but I just out of practice. Yeah. And I still get embarrassed because I think about, I don't want to make a mistake and look like a fool. What, in front of the people who love me? Yeah. But as a child, you don't think about that. You just go for it. So I think it'd be some of that. It's a lot easier to find when you're younger because you're closer to that.
Yeah, possibly. That's true. And then when you start, as the years go on, you start adding in the vested interest that some people might have in the comedy industry, or... well, before that, I mean, when I moved to North Carolina, I mean, that was another one of my random moves. So
you started in Missouri, you moved to New York, right?
Yeah, I got my degree in Missouri because I was just trying to bide time. I didn't want to. didn't want to work.
Yeah, that's why me and all my friends went to uni.
Yeah, I'm going to study Jonathan Swift. I'm going to, then I thought maybe going into teaching, and then when I was early 20s, I said, no, you should go to New York and try to do something with your funny voices, and did that for 4 years, and then things went to, for a variety of reasons. I pissed off the Screen Actors Guild, and then who else did I piss off?
How did you manage that? What did you do?
Well, I taught the last regular job I had I was a teacher in inner city Harlem, and it was horrible. It was, if you're not taught in the inner city, it's in America, New York, it was one of the worst experiences ever. There, you face abuse every day, and suck my dick, you white ass motherfucker, and you can't punish the kids because the principal wants to keep his job, and the superintendent wants to keep her job. So it's
sounds like Dangerous Minds, that movie. Did you not have a point where you all come together and then you'd like the hero of the day?
No, I thought that there'd be like 2 kids that wanted to learn, and then a lot of them were just they'd failed 3 times.
Yeah, and
so they kept getting held back, and it was and they were constant. There was a woman who was constantly pumping this race shit in their heads about they come from disenfranchised backgrounds, and that doesn't mean that they can't understand authors. This bigotry of low expectations.
Oh yeah, it's unreal.
And so when that job ended, I think I met some guy or something. He said, well, you should do voices. I've got an agent. And I hooked up with this agent, and I heard there was a strike going on at the time with the Screen Actors Guild. And there was all this work coming in for people who weren't members of the union, which I wasn't. And I never saw a picket line, but it wouldn't have mattered anyway because the money was fucking good.
You didn't see a picket? Yeah.
I never saw any picket line. So I'd be sent to these auditions and, Heineken advert or something like that. And I'd go in, and I remember one day I went in and did a Volkswagen advert, and my only line was, "Step out of the car, please, ma'am." And they gave me $2,600 on the spot.
But
Jesus. And I'd heard, and it was weird because I was in a play as well. And I remember saying, yeah, man, I'm doing these adverts. It's pretty cool. And this other guy in the cast, he said, there's a strike going on. And I said, yeah, but I'm not a member of the union, so what's the matter? So it was crazy. Anyway, I ended up getting cast in a TV advert after 6 months of this stuff.
So sorry to interrupt you, the Screen Actors Guild, that's just a union, is it?
That's the union in America.
Okay, so you pissed them off by not joining?
No, what happened was I got cast in a TV advert. And then the strike ended as we were shooting that TV advert, and they said, congratulations, you're in a union job now, so you get to join the Screen Actors Guild. So I joined.
Congratulations.
Yeah, right. So I joined the Screen Actors Guild. I said, this is great. Then I'll get to have my cake and eat it too, And then after about a couple months, they wanted me to come down to their office and discuss my membership. And they had it was very McCarthy-esque. They had like this panel of people, a big envelope with my name, with Franken written on it. And what had happened was the casting directors of these, you go in, you sign your name like, I'm Will Franken, I'm working with Booked Agency before you do your audition. After the strike ended, all those casting directors gave those lists.
This is what's been going on when you've been on strike. Is that kind of thing?
Gave them to the Screen Actors Guild. So when it was all over, they go, okay, looks like Will Franken auditioned for... And I said, but I wasn't a member of your union.
How much did he get paid for that? Because I want my cut. It's that, right? Is it that energy?
No. They said I was banned for 3 years from the Screen Actors Guild for that. So I wasn't a member of the union. I did the jobs. But to me, I thought you were a scab, but I didn't know how the scab thing worked. But I tell you what, I don't like fucking unions.
Oh, I fucking hate unions.
I hate unions.
So hang on, let me just... I'm a bit retarded. So you went... You didn't know there was a strike going on. You didn't care because no one had tried to... It's not like you'd need to turn up and go, I need to join the union immediately before I go for a job, right?
Yeah, well, that's the catch-22. You can't join the union unless you're on a union job, but you can't get a union job unless you're... You ever seen Dog Day Afternoon?
Yes, I have.
It's my favorite movie. And there's that scene where Al Pacino's being interviewed by the TV reporter, and he says, you could just get a job. You get a union job, then you got to have a union job to get a union card. And it's like that. It's like I never thought I was ever going to join the Screen Actors Guild because I never went to a...
Yeah, so you turned up. You didn't realize how much of an impact would have you working without joining the union. You'll join the union whenever it comes up. There's a strike going on, fine, I need to work.
That's what I thought. Yeah, and I gave them the $1,500 to join when they asked me to join, and then they
took the $1,500, then told you you're banned.
After a couple months, and then when they went through all the list of the casting list, it said, hey, this Franken guy went out there and auditioned during the strike, and
So what was the issue? Was it that you owed them? Would you owe them stuff, or were they saying on principle you should have not worked?
That's what they were saying. Yeah, on principle.
So you're a member of the guild whether you like it or not.
Yeah,
there's a social contract for the Screen Actors Guild.
They were saying there was shit in the New York newspapers at the time, like Richard Dreyfuss, Tim Robbins. You know those. They were coming out. We will go after whoever's working now with all the fury. They were really passionate about this more than any other like important topic. What they wanted was to be. I don't know, to me, if you come from a small town in Missouri, $2,600 is a lot for saying, step out of the car, please.
Yeah, it'd be rude not to take it.
It's stupid. It's like, how much more do you guys need? This is crazy money, you know? I didn't have much sympathy for them. And years later, the Writers Guild went on strike for the sitcoms. And people that were really vociferous about the Writers Guild strike were writers for The Office. And I thought, you didn't even come up with that show. That was Ricky Gervais's show.
Yeah.
So where do you get the balls? Ricky Gervais and Stephen Merchant wrote The Office, and then he sells it to Americans, and you get a team of writers, and you're claiming that the Writers Guild of America and writers aren't being treated fairly. Once upon a time, writers had to have their own fucking ideas.
Yeah.
Oh, I have no sympathy for those cunts.
I fucking hate unions because I like the idea of, hey, it's in. Someone works for me, they're not treating me correctly, but I need the job, so they're fucking me over in a bit because they know, well, where else are you going to go?
Yeah.
I can say, well, we're all going to group together and we're all going to strike. Yeah, the classic stuff of striking. The problem is when that becomes a right under when there's like... People feel like it's a bigger thing than it actually is. It's just me and you saying, let's not turn up to work. That's all being in a union is. Yeah. But now there's all this bullshit around it. There's power there, and that's what you experience.
Well, there's mafia there in America.
It's mafia, yeah.
I mean, even attracted the mafia.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
The government is the mafia, right? Yeah. The mafia is the mafia, and now unions are also the mafia. The reason the UFC didn't get to New York forever because of the culinary union. It wasn't even the pearl clutching, let's not beat each other up brigade. It was, no, we want to be in station casinos, which is a bunch of casinos, and that company also owns the UFC, so your sporting event can't be here.
Have you seen The Wire?
Oh, I've seen it all, yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I think that's somewhere in it, because there was something else inner city school teaching.
Yeah.
That no other show, I think, has captured. And I think he even said himself, the creator, said that his idea was to write about compromise. That it's not about the good guys get rewarded and the bad guys go to jail. In the real world, it is all about some nasty, kind of unseemly compromises.
Yeah.
Unions are definitely a big part of that, man. That was one thing. And then the other thing was that job that I was cast in was as a character called the Question Marquee, that TV advert, and that turned into a big fucking thing. I was a 18th century French marquis. We did, I think, 5 TV adverts. They were all going to be aired during some big college basketball championship in the States. It was like basketball's equivalent of the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And they paid me $30,000 to do that.
Jesus.
It was the most money that I'd ever seen in my bank account ever. And then they put my face on Frisbees, and it was a lot of coffee cups. And then they flew me around the country to make personal appearances as this character.
You'd made it?
Yeah, you can find them on YouTube. If you look up Question Marquee, and I have a question mark goatee.
Nice.
It was really, and I didn't believe in the product, unfortunately. It was an online library when those .coms were.
Yeah.
So the idea was that you don't need to go to the library. You can spend more time for passion,
Yeah,
and
nice.
The Question Marquee, and it was
that's awesome.
Really hacky character. And then I had never hung out with people who'd like business people, ad execs with expense accounts before. And so the idea of free dinners and stuff as well was fancy dinners as well. I think a lot of what's gotten me to problems over the years is that I'm from Missouri. I'm a little hillbilly guy from Missouri who happens to be good at comedy, and so I would go to these French restaurants with these people, and they would say, "Will, you don't have to come with us because you're out of costume now, but if you'd like, we're going to go to dinner." And I knew that meant free dinner because of expense account.
Yeah.
And I was younger, and I was really hyperactive, and I felt like I was king of the world because I was this mascot. And my dad was wrong. I'm a mascot, Dad. I'm a superstar. I'm going to be I'm going to get an Academy Award soon. And I would just show off in these places, and I would do be crazy at the table and goof off. And then one night after eating dinner, they said, we're going to go to this place called the Hudson Club. And again, you don't have to go with us, but I thought free drinks and tag along. We got in a limousine.
Nice.
I was being funny in the limousine. Then we get to the club, and it's the first time I was at one of those clubs where there's a velvet rope and a bouncer who points and says who's cool enough to go in. And I really fucking resented that. And all of a sudden, the funny stuff that I was doing for these ad guys,
because they were loving it.
Oh, they loved it up to that point. Yeah. All of a sudden, I became very hostile. Whatever comedy I was doing was getting really angry because I really resented being at a club where somebody could arbitrarily just say yes, yes, no, yes. And I took my shirt off and I started dancing around like Mick Jagger. And one of the women from the company came up and said, "I don't think you're supposed to do that here." And I said, "Fuck them if that's their attitude." And then the next day, my agent called me up and said, "What happened with the Questia people? They pulled all the adverts." Everything. So this $1 million campaign, they chucked it all because of my behavior in that club. So I had that. I had the Screen Actors Guild and really it was just like, I'm getting the fuck out of New York. I was heartbroken.
Yeah, I bet.
And I chose North Carolina at random, but I forgot why that was such a long answer. I forgot why I even brought it up.
Oh, it's good. This is a full of conversation. They're the best conversations. We're off the train now.
You told me to go off on a tangent, so.
Yeah, it's the train of thought. Hey, as long as the conversation's interesting, that's all that matters.
I hope it is, man.
Oh, dude, I'm loving this. Yes.
I don't think I've ever talked about that on a podcast, about the Screen Actors Guild.
Yeah.
Thing, but yeah,
it's super interesting. So I've sat down with some of my friends from Toronto, like out there. All the kids are doing acting. Everyone's an actor, So I sat down with my friend Brogan and Josh, and one of them had joined the union, and the other one hadn't.
Yeah,
and they were discussing they'd done their homework because they'd been to
Which
university.
Union was this then?
This is ACTRA.
Okay.
The Actors Union
for Australia.
This is in Canada. Yeah. So I did like a few bits of extra work when I was out there because it was easy to get.
Yeah.
I wanted to be on a real movie set, see all the roles. So then I'm like, when I make stuff, I'll know. Okay, you need someone to do this. It's good to have someone on hand with duct tape at all points. Just little things like that. Yeah. Once I did one or two, I was like, okay, I'm just hanging around with a bunch of people who were getting pissed off with each other because he just got a line. It was that kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, we were doing a nightclub scene, and we were just trying to get in to the front of the nightclub. It was for Triple X, the new Triple X movie. So we're just like people in a queue, and I'm like, well, I'm gonna have to act on cue to like let me in, be a douchebag on a night out. And I was with some guys at the back who'd been obviously on it for a while and like 10 years younger than me. And this one guy gets pulled up because he looks the part, and they go, "Oh, maybe you can be here with your arm around her, and you can be talking to the guy." And these guys next to me are like, "Fuck, he's just got a line." Yeah. They weren't like...
You mean that's how you get the lines, as you...
Well, that guy had just got a line, and fuck, if I just looked like that guy, maybe I'd get that line. They were annoyed that the guy had got it because he'd taken from them somehow, whereas I was there like, this is how this works. Fascinated by the process, but I wasn't this person who was like, I need to be... It was weird. It was very... A few things I saw that time was like, I don't want to be in that world of getting into competitions like this over stuff which is arbitrary.
Oh, it's horrible.
I like it when it's stand-up, you're undeniably funny. Like, you are undeniably funny.
But that doesn't count anymore.
It does count to me, and it counts to the people who care.
It counts to real people and real fans of comedy, but
that's all that matters.
To anybody who's going to... We have it's like Michael Savage is you might have heard of him, the American talk show host.
Michael Savage, no.
He's banned from entering this country.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's a weird story. Which makes you paranoid sometimes.
It's happening at the moment.
In 2009, I turned on his. The guy's in his 70s now, and he just says what's on his mind, and he 2009, I turned on the radio. Goes, I just found out I can't go to Britain, and he wasn't even planning on it. It was just what happened was the Home Secretary at the time said, "This will not be a country for hate, and here's some examples of hateful people we won't allow in this country." And she named I think 3 Islamic clerics, some skinhead, and then him. He was just.
What was his crime?
He was arbitrarily thrown in because he made some crack about. I'm paraphrasing badly, but it was. I don't know, something about Islamic nations having nuclear weapons, and would you rather them kill more of us or you kill more of them, or something real basic about the statistics. Boris Johnson actually was one of the few leaders at the time who called attention that this makes us look like children. Yeah. To ban somebody like this, but say again, why did I bring him up? Michael Savage,
we're talking about people's ideas. Let's go back. Try and get back on the train.
Yeah, get back on the train here. Yeah.
People's ideas. Caring about comedy. I said that the comedy fans we care about
real
real
people.
comedy.
So
real people and the industry people, yeah.
So Michael said, I mean, I've quoted a few things he said, but I did like, he said something about truth, and he was talking about these mainstream media organizations at the time, 2009, saying that, they have the fancy studios, they have the nice-looking anchors and all the glitz and the glamour, but they don't have the truth. And that's all they've got left is the studios. And that's what it feels like. It's like you have the means and the capabilities to produce these wonderful programs, whether that's technical or in terms of acting or whatever, and your own history in this country. You just have to use it.
Yeah.
That's why I don't want to see the BBC destroyed. I want to see it reformed.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of people that are so pissed off, like, fuck it, get rid of the whole fucking thing. But it just needs to be reformed,
Yeah, because it has done some amazing things.
Of course it has, yeah.
Like, especially when it comes to comedy.
Yeah.
Like, it's undeniable. You can argue about how good the news is and whether it's truly impartial and should we be taxing people for it. But at the end of the day, I wouldn't have a load of my favourite comedy if it wasn't for the BBC.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Same here. And getting back to what you were saying about how so-and-so gets a line, it reminds me of San Francisco used to have the San Francisco Sketch Fest, and I used to play there quite regularly. And I invited my friend one day backstage to the after party, and we're watching these comedians that we know that are really bad. They're very bland. They were just cookie cutter, and they're up there at the bar talking to an exec. The execs would show up and the agents and all that. And he turned to me and he said, "So is that how this shit works?" I said, "Yeah, that guy up there small talking to him has a better shot at getting on television than I do. Because I don't have that in me to be part of anything, or to put the fakery on and to say..."
Yeah.
I don't know. I say, what do they talk about? And years later, that was confirmed. There was an agent that had done an interview, a comedy agent who'd done an interview for some magazine. And in the interview, he said, talent plays a part of what we're looking for. But what we really want to see is if they're a good person to hang out with, or they friendly, or they. I said, wow, you just admitted it only plays a part. So you can have just the barest modicum of talent. And that's how diversity quotas work as well, if you think about it. You just get the barest amount of talent, but as long as you're a woman, we're actually looking for this percentage of women to appear on screen at any given moment. Yeah. I'm going to put my cardi on. Are you cold, by the way?
No, I'm good. Yeah. You go for it, though.
It gets so cold. That's not double glazed windows, man. Let me grab my cardi real quick.
No worries.
They regulate the heat, right? So they turn it on... That's the one catch, so they turn on 3 hours in the morning and 3 hours at night, but I got a portable one in there.
Yeah, you got to catch them at the right time for that.
That's crazy, isn't it?
That's what, my dad's place is like that as well. So these old houses as well.
Rationing.
They're old. Yeah.
That's what
Rationing,
it is.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so interesting because I'm so new on it, and I'm like, I could do a little bit of it, but ultimately the more the thing starts to become, the more it gets in the way of the art form, the more... it kind of turns you off. Now, obviously, I'd love to get loads of money. Yeah. But, yeah. Do you not find, though, that nowadays, we've got traditional media, we've got the BBC, big government movements and to make big things like Blackadder or whatever. Obviously, today and back then, that was big budget if you wanted to recreate it, right? You'd at least need the costumes. Whereas now... with the internet and technology, I mean, we're looking at like a bit of equipment here which hasn't cost that much money, and we're putting this out. Yeah. This is like a longer form conversation that the BBC would have ever dared do. They wouldn't do a 2-hour uninterrupted, uncensored conversation where you can go wherever you want.
This is true.
So in some respects, we've got more, and we can now beam this out to millions of people potentially around the world, so different countries. It's almost like it's changed a little bit. We've got more reach, but it's still expensive, I guess.
I was talking with somebody about freedom of speech recently. The person I was staying with up in Birmingham, and my attitudes towards freedom of speech have changed.
Oh, yeah?
Because it's not that they've changed. It's that I've always held... what I haven't until recently realized was two contradictory propositions. And one is that I do believe in free speech. Of course, it's, you can't censor the subconscious. So if my subconscious takes me somewhere, I can't filter that through any politically correct paradigms. But it's also, I'm also not an egalitarian. which is all social media is. It's everybody who feels like they're St. John the Baptist, you know, they could get on top of the mountain and preach to the multitudes. And if they get even an audience of 20, right, that's enough to keep them going indefinitely. See, the world to me is very noisy right now. It's not a place for a thinker. It's constant and utter noise in your face all the time. You can't escape notifications, any of this stuff. I am a Luddite. I practice it in my own small way. I mean, we can't escape certain things. I do use YouTube and all that, but I'm not an egalitarian. So how can I reconcile freedom of speech with what I think is a major problem that we're facing, is that everybody has their voice and is using their freedom of speech. And I think the truth is I believe in freedom of speech for myself, because I believe that my ideas can actually be problematic. And so when I'm talking about freedom of speech, I don't know if do I necessarily mean somebody's right to say, today's 5 years since my dad passed, here's a picture of him, like, sad emoji face, you know.
Yeah,
I think we have I hate to say it, I think we have entirely too much freedom of speech now. And I think that was, it felt otherwise. And in some cases it is. With the BBC, it is clearly a case of, it's not even about freedom of speech. It's that we're not looking for anything that would actually challenge anybody to question free speech principles.
Right.
So it's not about left or right. It's just we're not looking for anything challenging. So that's a clear example where it is the case. But when you go to social media, it is the case that everybody does have a voice and can spout the most inane drivel.
Yeah.
One of the last interviews I did for Sky, it was Trump's visit, you know, and I said, and this is back when I had Twitter, which I don't know why I had it so long. I got rid of it. But
yeah.
I did some interview, and then I guess I said something about the elites, which makes sense because I probably would have said something, I don't like the elites. And somebody from Missouri had tweeted, "Dude, Will Franken's on Sky talking about the elites. Dude, from his own admission, leaves Missouri, goes to New York, goes to London." I go, I see what he's doing here. He thinks that because you live in London, you must be elite because everybody in London is the Monopoly guy,
right?
Or Prince Andrew or whatever. He has no concept of East London,
yeah, or
impoverished Londoners. He has, you know, I lived in Harlem. Because I'm from Missouri. I went there and I go, what's the cheapest place? I'm not going to pay $2,000
right.
more to stay away from the blacks like you good liberals do. I'm going to live with the blacks because that's where the real racism is. Cheaper rent up here, you know? God, damn, that was a tangent, wasn't it?
Yeah. No, it's interesting, though, because you want to be right in with reality.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're away from reality, caring about the environment and racism when you're never around it. You got no idea what the fuck you're talking about.
They don't know. We never needed those people. That's the thing.
No.
Like the first people I ever got high with as a kid, Terry. He unfortunately was murdered. You know, but he was a black gay guy in Missouri, in a small town Missouri. You know that, and a lot of this has to do with. See, I didn't need these academics to tell me that. You know, and that's what I resented. You get to university and you hear about the racism and the racism and the racism, but it was like, we didn't need you to tell us that.
Yeah.
You know, what you need to be fostering is actual education, you know, because, you know, or fostering individual interest, because Terry was an individual.
Yeah.
And he didn't say, well, you can't be gay and like, I mean, even Jimi Hendrix, you know, which he used to play the same Jimi Hendrix. You know, my first days of marijuana, you know, he was an older kid and we'd drive out in the country and get stoned, and he always had crosstown traffic on. Even then, that was considered anomalous to not really being black, you know, hanging around with white kids. And, you know, he was supposed to be on the other side of the tracks, hanging around hip-hopping and shit like that, you know. The message back then was all about individualism.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to cross over, you're going to get into different things, but now it is nothing
You don't want to appropriate.
Exactly. The black experience, the gay experience.
Well, that's the problem now. The identity is, it's reversed itself. The people who say that they are the most against racism are literally the most racist because they want to remind everyone of their differences all the time.
Yeah.
And hey, don't you try and be like him in a way to what? Like, That's how you show your common humanity. When people used to come around to my house when I was a kid, we'd sit at the sofa, which is basically just a tablecloth. We'd sit on the floor to eat dinner. That's how I grew up. We do that in Iran. People would come round and they wouldn't know, but they'd sit and just join in, sit cross-legged, eating on the floor. Yeah. They weren't appropriating my culture. If they went home and started doing it, I'd be like, oh, cool. Now this is this nice bridge between us. But now people are saying, don't copy him. Don't do the same as them. Oh, yeah. It's just, but I saw these weird archetypes going through school. One of my stories was one of my big moments in my life in school. Somehow it feels relevant. We're in an art class, and the art teacher couldn't control my school. It was a really working class school in Birkenhead. And so everyone was just always yelling and whatever, just being artistic and talking to each other. And she thought, oh, just go with it. Anyway, there was a rare moment where my friend walked in. He was like the class clown along with me, and everyone just went quiet, which was weird in this class because they didn't have to be quiet. Yeah. And he just cracked a joke and went, "Wow, did somebody just die or something?" 3 of us laugh. Yeah. And then 30 seconds later, a girl in the corner cries because her nan died a month ago or something. Now, she had an experience. He made a joke. He got in trouble for it.
Yeah, of course.
And that was I was like, he had no idea. I just, at the time as a kid, I couldn't believe what was going on. And I don't know, that's felt kind of relevant to what we were talking about.
No, I see what you're coming from there. Yeah. What, jokes being punished because one person feels...
Yeah, it's the kind of, an authority saying on the behalf of the thing which is happening in reality, we need to dish out punishment. And it's the same people at universities who are educating us all about racism. Above all, it's race now at universities.
That's like what I did. I did a gig in Manchester, and this was back. I dressed as a woman for 7 months back in 2015.
I just saw this. Yeah.
And so as a result of that, I was getting invited to do all sorts of gigs. Would you come speak at our feminist conference? I said, fuck it. If you give me a few quid, I'll swing by on my way to the other gig, and popped in and did my thing about the Muslim. What do you want to know about Islam? Yes, I want to know about women's rights in Islam. I'm not listening. You're a woman. Next question. And this girl in the back said, "I'm a Muslim," and then the whole crowd turned hostile on me. And I said, "Yeah, but if you said you're a Christian, they'd be eating out of my palm right now."
You should have said you were a Muslim.
Well, it'd be hard to fake.
But you can take their power away. Yeah, it'd be hard to fake, true. Yeah. But if you can, because now you can identify as anything, well, certain things. Yeah. So you all of a sudden were a woman, or you were at least trans, so you had that shield. Yeah. So all of a sudden, people can't come at you from that angle. But tell you what, as my friend Sean says, race trumps everything. Yeah. And Islam is a race. Islam's all of a sudden.
A race now, yeah. Right? It's been a race for some while, yeah.
What the fuck are we talking about? Yeah. What the fuck are we talking about? It's the teachers in society, and there's a conflict here. Yeah. Real emotion, laughter. Someone's parent just died, and then the teacher comes in and goes, "Oh, we're going to dish out justice based on this." You're like, well, why can't we just work this out?
I was thinking something recently. I don't know if this connects or not, but Will and Grace, which is a show that I've never seen, but
neither have I. Yeah, but I've seen clips, as in like this. I know what Will looks like and Grace looks like, kind of, and I know what kind of show it is, but I've never watched it.
Apparently, the big story at the time was it was the first time in America in a sitcom where a gay character had been introduced as just a normal person who just happened to be gay. It wasn't a comic foil or anything. I forget how old I was when that show came out, but I had concerns about that at the time, not because I'm homophobic or anti-gay, but what worried me was that the media would now become a moral teacher. Yeah. Based on something like that, and that we would move away from things that were actually funny, more towards things that made us feel good, about having a friend who was gay, for example. And That's I think, because I would rather the moral. I'm old fashioned. I'd rather the moral teacher still be the you go to church, whatever the vicar does the moralizing and the teacher does the teaching.
This is someone with the function of it that you've chosen to dish it out, rather than everyone in society. So I want Gillette talking to me about feminism or whatever?
Yeah, my only theory with Gillette is that Gillette probably thought we're big enough. When you go to Poundland, you're going to see Gillette razors. And they probably thought they're big enough to do some experiment with this shit. Possibly, I don't know.
But you want it to come from like a priest or someone that you've chosen, rather than just companies trying to make money. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, or not even that. Not even just companies, but the entire society writ large.
Right.
Being moralistic, and which is what Facebook and Twitter is. Yeah. It's a big morality play.
Yeah, that's why I got off. I mean, I use Facebook now only for promoting stuff. So I've got an account, which is me, but it's stand-up and podcasts, and I administer some work stuff through it. That's it. I'm not putting my social stuff on there. In fact, I won't accept anyone as a friend on there who isn't a comedian. I'm like, no, if you're in the industry, if I've seen you get on stage, then that's it. Otherwise, I'm not accepting you. Because I found that, okay, so we have developed over, 250 million years face-to-face with each other. And they say that, what is it, like 90% of communication is non-verbal, which means that the thing that we've got left is verbal. That's a tiny percent of the communication. Yeah. People don't speak face-to-face anymore. They certainly don't speak on the phone anymore. It's a lot easier to text. They just text me. Yeah. I've had to text people ahead of a phone call. It's like, okay, I'll call you later for this. They're not super busy. I'm going to call you, you answer or don't, right? Yeah. So we're not in front of each other anymore. We're in front of screens. And we are reading rather than listening. Yeah. And we're not reading a book, which is taking forever to write. We're reading text messages. That's all Twitter is. That's all Facebook is. Yeah. So I can read into that whatever I want, because 90% of communication is non-verbal. The 10% that's left, which is super rich, is developed over nearly the same amount of time, is verbal. None of it is written.
That's why
it's a new technology.
That's why I take umbrage with how this Titania McGrath thing, which you.
Oh, what's that?
It's about the fake Twitter account. It's actually Andrew Doyle. But it's a fake...
So I haven't heard this.
Yeah, it's a fake social justice warrior on Twitter that's saying, but it's really actually not them, because I don't think you can actually do satire on Twitter. I think satire has to be a bit long form. So we've moved away from anything involving concentration. I made this William Blake documentary a couple of years ago and with my friend Scott, and by the end, to me, it was an anthem about Blake's Christianity and Blake's patriotism. So in his own, he was a Christian, but it was his own Christianity. It was the Bible as he saw it, and it was. What I wanted to do is I wanted people to leave thinking, it's not bad to be a patriot. It's not bad to believe in the Judeo-Christian heritage of your nation, especially when you got somebody as cool and as visionary as William Blake behind it. And it's a 1 hour and 40-minute film, and I sent it to people who were banging on about Brexit, and I said, here you go. It's the message is here, and they couldn't finish the movie. They get like 20 minutes in, and then they'd say, hey, did you see this thing that Frank Furedi wrote about the things? It's just they can't think out of the immediate social media political bubble. I can sit through even a bad movie if it's an hour and 40 minutes. That's just an hour and 40 minutes. But people can't even make it through feature films anymore.
So I work in a load of escape rooms, and we take their phones off them before they go into the room. Like, you're going to be locked in a room for an hour. Yeah. Your phones go in this box, and that's the biggest real experience, the biggest problem that people have with it. And it's the businessmen always. They're always like, oh, well, I'm too important to put my phone in the box, so I'm going to not do the experience. Yeah. It's like, for an hour. Yeah. I mean, people are super addicted to their phones, and we're addicted now to like texting is so, I think it's so bad, because you can read whatever you want into it. Yeah. It's the instant thing. So people's attention spans are ruined, like you're saying, and people can't get into anything anymore. Like, I talk about a podcast, my podcast go on for 3 hours, 4 hours sometimes, and people are like, it's too long. I'm like, okay, well, it's not for you then. Yeah. I do some 20-minute ones, I do some hour ones, but people can't sit through anything anymore. It's very difficult. Because
I get all sorts of advice. I have this thing where sometimes I do like an hour-long video where I just riff. And I try never to go above an hour. It's just 60 minutes I arbitrarily just cut it off. Yeah. And I put those out sometimes. And that's relatively new. I've only been doing that maybe 2 or 3 years. It's very new in my 20-year career. But some people really like those. And then sometimes you get people saying, you should do like 15-minute things. And, all the time I would get that shit. And it's like, but I didn't ask your opinion. I mean, I really didn't, and the truth, at the end of the day, I'm going to do what I want to do. Yeah. And because there's not a single shred of businessman in me. So anytime I try to do something that a business person has suggested, it's always blown up in my face anyway.
Well, because it's work. It's easy for you to sit down and do. Yeah. And when I say work, I mean work as in stuff you don't want to do, as opposed to things you want to do. They're both work, but I see work. I don't think I'm playing on one side, even though it's highly technical or whatever.
Yeah.
So chopping something up into smaller parts, promoting it out, thinking about tagging for it. What's the title that would work best?
Yeah.
And then you've got to think about algorithms. If I want to get my thing on at YouTube, then I've got to just take your Greta Thunberg thing. Maybe I have to put Greta Thunberg in bold because, usually in bold it says climate or other buzzwords, and that's how the algorithm works. That's not creating anymore.
That's what happened, because Comedy Unleashed were the ones that shot that video, and they were the ones that titled it. I never would have called it that. I think it's called Climate Change Trans Activism Inspired by Greta Thunberg.
Right.
Because they were trying to say, here's a Greta Thunberg thing, because I know there's lots of people that want to see this, but I never would have called it. I would have given it some obscure title, just because I like the kind of the Pink Floyd aspect of like, what is this thing?
Yeah.
I'm not sure what I would have called it, but the point is, because they did that, it probably went viral.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you now if they hadn't have done that.
Exactly,
So there's two sides to it, and I think the issue you've got is, which is all I have it as well, is who wants to sit down and think about the marketing side of it?
Yeah.
Not me. I want to create the thing.
Yeah.
Surely there's people who care about that and they can do it. And you need to partner with someone who has that.
Well, that's
kind
it.
of thing.
But again, you go back to that egalitarianism. That's the problem with the internet, is that somebody might be a really good, just a lighting design type person. But because of the internet, it's like, I do this, I'm also a comedian, I'm also this. And it's like, but if you stop doing the comedy, you could do that really, really well. And then you could actually, who knows, make a killing. But at the end of the day, everybody wants to be an artist. Because everybody thinks that art is not actually work.
It is work.
Yeah, of course it's work. And then they make that mistake and they go, I want to do this because I can wake up at midday if I want.
Oh, yeah. Of course it's work.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. Yeah. It's hard. But because it's so hard and it is work, you don't want to be then spending your time learning what the YouTube algorithm is. And you know what? You need to the Google algorithm as well. And also, you're going to be on Instagram. I mean, you really want to get your social media going. So Instagram is also part of Facebook. So you need to know about 4 computing algorithms to push comedy.
That's it.
Forget about it.
I mean, my last video I did was it was some weird sketch thing where it was one of the recurring gags was talking about real history. And there was a guy that was celebrating the first balloon fetishes to climb up Mount Everest.
Right.
So I wanted to say something about, where do you draw the line? At what point do these famous first cease to be famous first anymore? This first time a guy named Will from Missouri climbed Mount Everest, the first time a coprophiliac, whatever, the first. And the guy's saying, like, today we are celebrating real history. Not the history of the Napoleons or the Churchills or the Shakespeares, but real history. And as he's saying this, you go from pictures of Napoleon, Shakespeare, and then when he says real history, there's a picture of like a man with a ball gag in the middle of the street being spanked. You're just celebrating the fetishes. And because he had that German accent, real history, we are celebrating real history, that when it came time for an image, because I put it up on Thanksgiving, I got a painting of the first American Thanksgiving, and then I decided to call it Veal.
Yeah.
Veal history with Will Franken. And I like that because it doesn't say a bit about the first thing or whatever. So I wanted to have that kind of Pink Floyd effect. Like, what is this album with the wall on it, and what is this?
Yeah, it's all part of the experience. Tell you what, I mean, who wants to have their art described in that way?
Yeah.
Like my brother is a rapper, right? And he's done his interpretation of certain songs with him rapping over it. And if you're into him as an artist, you're like, oh, cool. That's it. But the most successful videos he has is young white kid kills it on X Eminem rap or whatever. I'm showing my lack of knowledge here, but you have to get into the marketing side of it, which is
owns or all that shit. Yeah, no.
Yeah, you have to get into that side. So, but I think I think that's why it's good for you to have you want to have both of them up there.
Yeah.
And someone else handling the other shit because it's not you, unless you're parodying it.
Yeah.
It's weird. Yeah.
I mean, they sent me a clip recently. They said, are you happy for us to upload this clip of you from a couple months ago? And I hate watching myself. I gotta take time out to watch myself for 14 fucking minutes. And I'm watching this going, because before I just let people do it. And then I started to get nervous about, I'm a little bit nervous about how my name is being associated sometimes. For example, like the Comedy Unleashed has my photo along with Constantine Kissin up on their website. I didn't know that until recently. And, I thought that's not fair to put me next to somebody so that they wouldn't book me. That hypocrisy is just glaring, And, but again, it's about getting the product out there. It's like, doesn't matter. break a few eggs to make an omelet. It's that mentality, because it's all part of the free speech movement thing. But I think it is the. So yeah, I just have to reconcile that with myself. Can you believe in unmitigated free speech? And I think the truth is, I do believe in free speech for myself, but I'm also an elitist when it comes to, should everybody have the means to? I don't know if that's true. In the ballot box, yes, but every day, they say this about Corbyn. Yeah, I was reading this thing about the Tories. It's too noisy.
It's noise. It is noise.
Of all the pollution that people supposedly care about, the one that nobody gives a fuck about is noise pollution. Nobody even thinks about noise pollution anymore.
No. Before we continue, can I just turn this light on?
I was going to turn these on.
Yeah, it's cool just because it'll be so dark.
Do you want the overhead on?
The overhead would be cool as well. Yeah, just as bright as possible, because I won't be able to see on the video.
Yeah.
Try not this one on.
You want to do that one as well?
Is that cool?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So noise. Yeah. So okay. So this is a problem that's always been, though, I think, right? So, the printing press comes around. You can have somebody saying the same thing, right? Because there's pros and cons to any new technology. So, so now everyone can print a book.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sure in its own way, they had similar kind of problems then. And I think I think the best stuff still comes to the top. And it means more people can create, and you just need to learn to adapt to ignore the noise. So don't have a phone. Don't be on your phone constantly. All of a sudden, if I walk out there, I don't know what someone's Twitter handle is. I don't know what their avatar is. When you get away from your phone, people are having phone vacations now. I'm getting off the internet. I think adopting stuff like that is a good way of handling it, and I think that people have been doing that forever. I mean, obviously you can't ignore the Crusades and the Protestant Reformation and shit like that when it happens.
Well, that's another question. I mean, the Catholic Church had its problems, of course, but then without the Protestant Reformation, you wouldn't eventually get to a situation where you could start a church in a mud puddle and just be out there and have your own opinion on abortion people who are doing that, people shouting whore and harlot at people in the streets because of the Protestant Reformation. Yeah. Whereas when it was, and it's when you get back that far back into history, you're like, was it worth it? Well, that's the way it happened, but that's why you do end up with everybody's own person. It also leads to the humanitarian movement as well. Yeah. We believe that Jesus is both a woman and a man, and whatever you want to make of it, this kind of do-it-yourself mentality with religion. So pluses and minuses on both sides, and which weighs down the most on which side. I mean, my uncle's everything Protestant. He was Lutheran. He was a Lutheran minister for a while. But yeah, it was the kind of do-it-yourself thing, which I think is dangerous as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the thing. We've got examples throughout history, but also this is just one example of a species moving in a certain direction. We don't know of any others like this that ever got to this level. So, technology, maybe if you zoom out and you find a bunch of planets where they've had ape-like people, high level intelligence, maybe when you find out, actually a characteristic for this lot is the more they speak to each other, the worse it gets, eventually leading to war or something. Because right now you've got, I didn't think that Twitter would be spoken about so much when it comes to elections, you know. This technology, which is kids sending shit to each other, is now how the president tweets, and Russia was involved. Everyone's talking. So
I agree with that, and I think the only problem I really have with Trump on a consistent basis is I think he should not tweet. I really think he should not. And I that dickhead I was telling you about with his fictitious £50,000 contract. He was always doing that with Trump. He was like, what he's doing is a chess game, because he was a Trump fan. I said, no,
chess.
Sometimes he fucks up. He fucked up when he told those women when he told those women to go back to where they're from. That was a major fuck up. And this idiot was on the phone saying, no, this is part of the chess plan. He's not playing chess. He fucked up. Yeah. And, if you're going to be a real follower, you should have the guts to admit when your leader fucks up. He fucked up there. And I think he fucks up when he tweets as well, because he basically gives Twitter a platform and says this is a valid form of communication for people. When it would be nice to have some, whether that's a political leadership class somewhere in the world where they're not using it and saying that's what you, that's what you common people do down there with your silly thing, but we're kind of the grown-ups leading the country, and we don't communicate in this silly fashion with the hashtag hearts and prayers shit.
Oh yeah,
any of this shit, we don't do that.
Yeah, God, the hashtags. Fuck.
There was a little kid during the summer. I used to go down to the sea every day, and because I didn't grow up with the sea, it was just beautiful. And go down in the summer, you spend hours there. And this family was walking by one day with this kid, must have been 5 or 6, and the kid was looking around. And as they passed by me, the kid said, "What is this place?" And it was just such a beautiful sound to hear a kid say that. Yeah. He's not looking at a screen, which so many kids of his age now are. Even at 5 or 6, he's not looking at a screen. He's looking around at natural wonder and saying, "What is this place?" And it makes you resent the climate change people even more, because they're the ones that want to fuck up that sightline. They want to put those ugly-looking wind turbines in the sea. Yeah. So that beautiful sightline is destroyed, And then you don't have kids looking around going, "What is this place?" anymore.
Yeah, God, there's a load of them up north, up by Liverpool.
Yeah,
just off the coast, one of the biggest wind farms in Europe. It's crazy. Yeah, the climate. The climate is another interesting one where you can't even question any of it without. Okay, what do you want to do though? What is it that you want to do? And so you're not on our side. No, I'm just asking what the solution is.
Well, yeah, hopefully they'll catch on that it's the same shit as the reparations, white privilege argument. They say, okay, at what point does this stop? I mean, does this keep going on for generation after generation? Because you see, okay, Theresa May, who's supposed to be a conservative, said that you're going to end all this carbon shit by 2050, but that's not good enough. You want to, then the Lib Dems may say 2040, Extinction Rebellion was 2025. The truth is, it's not a real thing. That's why you keep making up these weird numbers. Like, we're going to pledge 99 billion trillion pounds to fix the climate crisis, because it's not real. It's just cartoon money and cartoon expressions.
Yeah.
Anybody with half a brain knows it's not real.
I went to Carnarvon Castle recently.
Oh, I love that.
And it was Carnarvon Castle. Then I went to Conway Castle. Just we've gone and checking out castles. Basically,
Conway's cool.
Conway's great. That's where Longshanks was.
Oh yeah,
freaking Braveheart.
Yeah.
And we were looking in the gift shop. They had this big painting on the wall, and it was like an artist illustration of Conway Castle, and it was like, I forgot what date it was, but it said this many men made this, and it only cost £4,000 British pounds, and everyone was like, "Wow, stuff only cost 4,000 back there." Yeah. That was the point of it, you know. But I was like, no, hang on, this is a commentary on finance and fiat currency. Like, look how much you could have bought Conway Castle with £4,000.
Yeah.
Now, like, £4,000 is nothing.
Yeah.
It is absolutely, and no one ever thinks, where does money come from? What is money? Why can you print money? What is debt? No one's thinking any of this stuff. You're not really taught about any of it in school.
Nobody cares anymore. We're told to move away from cash all the time.
Yeah.
Everything's card based. Everything's machine based. It's.
Trackable.
I'm skeptical of moving away from cash.
Yeah.
There's something about, because it just seems to me that I never use contactless. It seems to me that what they're banking on is that you accidentally tap things all the time and just accidentally buy shit, because it becomes effortless. It's like,
it's frictionless.
I own this.
Well, Amazon is the craziest for that. Like, okay, Christmas is coming up. We're going down to see family. I need to buy a Secret Santa present and all this. And then it's like Black Friday. I'm like, oh, look, the Amazon Echo, which is a bug for my house where they can listen in, right? Like, oh, that's only £20. Okay, well, that's an easy present. Press a button. It's going to arrive quickly the next day. I'm like, fuck, I'm easily shopping here.
Yeah.
And I've been addicted to multiple things before. I bought loads of stuff and thought that's where happiness was. And I thought, wow, I could easily get into a cycle of just, what's the next thing I'll order? Like, so easily.
Yeah.
I'd love to have gold, to be honest with you. I don't want to worry about the whims of a government for, like, whether my currency goes up and down.
No, I know it's I don't really talk about economics much, really, but I am skeptical of a contactless culture, and and that maybe that's just because I'm a Luddite as well, but who is it? Somebody said, who says technology outpaced wisdom?
Oh, right, yeah.
I forget who said that. Part of me wants to say Douglas Murray, but I don't think that's the case.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I've never heard that quote, but it makes sense. Yeah.
Technology has definitely outpaced wisdom.
Yeah,
and we just take on those forms of technology without even knowing if we need it or not. But then again, that's a moral question for an individual to resolve. but not a movement.
Yeah.
That's the problem. When you get down to the individual conscience, it's like, can I morally support something like this or not? And you can only really do it in your own small way, I think.
Yeah, you need to, I think that what more people really need to do, and this is something that, I learned from Man in the Mirror by Michael Jackson and also from Jordan Peterson, the same message. If you want to change something, change what you're doing.
Yeah.
Don't go out there trying to change everybody else.
Yeah.
Jordan Peterson says, tidy your room, meaning, you're going to go and march for like rights when you can't even tidy your room. Why would they trust you with anything?
Yeah.
It's just a childish mentality, really, to want to change everyone else rather than changing yourself. And I think that technology enables you to become a worse version of yourself, and it also enables you to try and change. It amplifies everything, the good and the bad, so you're going to get an epidemic of people who have wasted their lives. Yeah. So my friends were talking about this. So what they say about cigarettes is a certain amount of time on the end of your life is going to be taken off per cigarette. That's what they say, right? Now, some people go in with that gamble and they go, do you know what? I'm fine with it for whatever reason I get from it. And also, loads of people smoke their entire life and don't die, right? So there's a gamble there, right? You could win, right? You could lose. With social media, you lose the time no matter what. Yeah. You might not be losing it. You could my auntie lived to 102, smoked every day of her life, right? Yeah. With social media, I have a tracker on my phone which is telling me every day you spent 40. I'm like, my cousin, she was like 80 hours a week on her phone because the app's there that tells you. And I was like, whoa, I felt bad at 23. I was like a whole day. Yeah. So 52 days a year. And that's not counting sleeping either. So I don't get 24 hours a day. That's really like half of the year I'm on my fucking phone. Yeah. And that's time you've definitely lost. There's going to be, just like the tobacco industry, there's going to be a thing against social media. Like, well, we've lost this time now. You're going to have a lot of time, kind of people who've lost a bunch of time. Like, I could have been really great, but I spent all my time on social media.
And it's somebody else's thing as well. I mean, there was all this hubbub about censorship on Facebook. And then the more I thought about it, my girlfriend turned me onto that film, The Social Network.
Yeah.
So I didn't like Facebook already. But then after seeing that, I was like, I didn't know it was a fucking revenge fantasy for a girl that didn't like him or something. I had no idea it was. But I said the truth is, if he wants to censor Facebook, at the end of the day, it's his website.
Yeah,
it's his own little perverted megalomaniac nightmare that we're all living through. So if he wants to censor it, fuck it.
But it's the first time artificial intelligence has been experimented on an entire population, a world population. They know more. There's a movie with Benedict Cumberbatch, I think it was, a BBC production called The Brexit and Uncivil War, I think it was called. And it's about the guy who was behind the whole Brexit, the guy that they got in on the Leave side. Yeah. And he basically goes to a company like a subsidiary of Cambridge Analytica, I think it was. And he said, look, what we need to do is, because we're an outside party, we need to get the voter list, people who voted, and we need to then target those people. And he goes, it's a bit different these days, the way we do it. Yeah. He goes, we know, because we've got so much data from so many people, we can predict stuff about them with surprising, embarrassing accuracy. And he goes, give me an example. He goes, well, we know, Facebook knows when you're falling out of love with your partner. They know before you do.
What, they can pick up on certain posts, I imagine.
You're giving, think about the time you spend on your phone. Yeah. They know when you're scrolling. They know when you're looking at the phone. They know everything, right? They know what you look at. And they have billions of people, 2 billion people on Facebook saying, I'm in a relationship. Yeah. And that was preceded by a load of photos between 2 people. Yeah. So that's a behavior which goes, you're falling in love. So they'll have similar behaviors for falling out of love.
True. They would,
it's big data, right? So if I could say, Will smokes more when he's in love, right? And then they notice your spending habits. You can predict it, but they've got you're on it 7, 8, 9, 10 hours a day. So we've given, without knowing it, it's this guy's, coming back to your point, it's Mark Zuckerberg's revenge fantasy, but also it's influencing humanity and politics.
It is, and I wonder because I always add in religion or some kind of theology to this thing, because I think it is a religious thing, and I wonder sometimes if it's pantheistic, that the idea in the West right now is we all get along, it's one big community, we're all part of the human family, there's no nations, no borders, it's just we're all one. And in that sense, we all become the God that we seek. So we don't need to go to church because we are that God. And so when we act now, it's almost like we're merely part of one organism. Yeah. with no distinct individuality. And we're just kind of being swept along with whatever the zeitgeist is at the time, because we're not actually in control of our own destinies. But, that contradicts a Christian point of view, which is that, that I've always believed logically in the Eastern philosophies, because it makes sense that, matter dissolves and goes into the great one, or, decomposition of matter and all that. So logically and scientifically, Eastern religions seem to make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
However, what I want is the Judeo-Christian version, which is that you get to maintain your individuality in the beyond. You promise something which sounds so totally fantastical and probably isn't true. We don't know, but the preservation of the individual soul, and that anything like that with the technology, with the saturation of technology and social media, community oneness, all of this stuff, it seems to run counter to this idea of the individual living on forever.
Yeah.
We don't get to make these choices without somebody snooping in or selling us something.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. I think that... have you heard much about the simulation theory? You heard that stuff?
No, I'm not sure I have.
So... There's a guy, his name's Eric Weinstein. He was talking about it recently, and Sam Harris is a neuroscientist. The more that they're looking at the world that we're kind of creating electronically, we're creating simulations of reality, basically like video games. You show someone a video game now, like my nan from Iran, right?
Yeah.
She's praying towards Mecca, right? That's what she was doing.
Yeah.
If I put a virtual reality headset on her,
Yeah.
she'd think it was real to some extent,
Yeah.
right? It's like the first time they showed a movie ever was in a tent, and it was a train traveling past the screen, and people thought it was a real train and went running from the tent. So people are fooled quite easily.
Yeah.
Basically, anyway, the argument is that we're eventually going to have simulations which are like indistinguishable from reality.
I would imagine that,
Yeah, well, 100%, right? With science, the argument is that everyone will start running simulations of Earth and this time that we're in now. And there's going to be an almost infinite number of those simulations compared to what actual reality is, which is the world we think we're in right now. So what's the chances that you're going to be in the actual reality, or you're going to be in a simulation? You could just be in one of those simulations in the future.
Well, there's this thing now that I forget what it's called, but where they can take another actor's face and put it on...
Yeah, deep fake stuff.
Deep fake, yeah. And I saw the one they did with Jim Carrey and Jack Nicholson's face in The Shining.
Oh, shit, I haven't seen that one.
Yeah.
So when he comes through the door, it's Jim Carrey?
Yeah, but you wouldn't know the difference. You would just say, like, Jim Carrey was in the Stanley Kubrick film.
Right, there you go. Yeah.
It's you don't know, and to me that opens up all sorts of intellectual copyright issues, because down the road it could change history in the sense that you could say, when Jim Carrey was in The Shining.
Yeah.
Especially since people don't really watch movies anymore.
Yeah.
But people do get little clips from YouTube, and and if they do that with the entire movie, you would say, Jim Carrey was in the movie. You can keep faking stuff to the point where you don't know what was real and what's
so it's not. We're already creating through movies. I mean, movies are just simulations of reality.
We're living in through the death of history.
Yeah.
And I believe the only way forward is to look backwards. Nobody's looking backwards. The BBC's not. All the BBC has to do is look backwards 20 years, and they would say, "Shit, we used to make that." That's all they have to do. Just turn your eyes 20 years to the past and go, "Fuck, I didn't know we could do that. What are we doing this shit for?" We're doing this shit because Tony Hall, the current commissioner of the BBC, has a 2016 to 2020 diversity and inclusion guideline package, which your listeners can find as a PDF file, where he breaks up minorities and women and sexual preferences into mathematical abstractions, as if that's all they are, is where they put their PP, or whether they got a PP or not. And that's all Tony Hall thinks about humanity. And if that's your view of humanity, then you definitely can't think in terms of great comedy.
Yeah.
Or the commissioners that run the... I mean, I used to go out with a chick who worked for Radio 4, and I'd say, why did you get her on? She's horrible. Yeah, they say we need more women.
Oh, God. So it's nothing to do with the quality of the product.
Nothing to do with the quality of the product.
Yeah.
Fleabag's a great example. I mean, I've seen a few clips of Fleabag. She just looks like a bitch. I don't know what's funny about this. There's nothing I can relate to it. She goes to a therapist. She complains about her horrible life, and it's being compared to Shakespeare. It's just insane. But maybe people are... I always give people more intelligence than they probably have. I think it's cheap to assume that people are stupid.
Yeah, you shouldn't.
And yet
assume
it's
that.
true. Time and again, I look at it and go, that, yes, they have been, but the thing is, they've been made stupid, and that's what I disagree with. When people say somebody is naturally stupid, you know, whatever. I never believe that. I believe everybody with the right teaching.
Yeah.
You know, the right teachers, you know, and unfortunately, if you have teachers that say, my students are my greatest teachers, you're going to create stupid students. Because you're supposed to be a teacher. Your students are not your teachers. You're the fucking teacher, and they're the students.
Yeah.
And only when you know that can you.
Yeah, if I wanted to go and learn drums, and I'm learning from someone who doesn't teach, like, I'm not going to become a very good drummer. You could say, well, what is drumming? And we can get into some esoteric discussion about the whole concept of power in drumming, and well, maybe you shouldn't be good because you put some practice in. What is good?
That's why the character of Jeremy, I was revisiting Peep Show. I find him so funny because he does say shit like that all the time.
Great.
Like he justifies his own stupidity by saying, you know, I just couldn't do the ones where he's a life coach.
Yeah, oh, it's so good.
You know?
He ends up sleeping with both.
Yeah, I'm a life coach now. You know, and yeah, you can just say you're a life coach and be a life coach, and you can just say you're a comedian and be a comedian, and you know, but it does. I mean, there's obviously certain, and then the jobs that do require some kind of, you know, discernible skill, like comedy, you can always say, like, hey, I got up on stage and I'm from Radio 4. You know, okay, that's a spectrum there, but you know, something like a plumber. Yeah, but what you do in that instance is you outsource your jobs to people from other countries. You outsource the menial labor, so you can come and say, nobody can do that. Yeah. That's why we have to have this. But as far as comedy, everybody can fucking do it. Yeah. You know, it's
wow. So you're completely de-skilling a population. It's like, oh, we don't do any of the manual stuff anymore. We farm that out to people who get down on their knees and do plumbing, and, you know, which is looked down on, which is ridiculous. Yeah. Like, if you learn a trade like that, like my uncle, he like converted my entire attic. He does everything physically, like manually. Yeah. He's amazing. He can create like carpentry. People go to him like, oh, can you make like a half moon crib for my baby? He's like, looks at it, he goes, yeah, I could knock that up. He's a real man's man. Yeah. Craftsman. And he can build the house he lives in. Yeah. It's amazing. There's a great skill to have if, you know, drop him anywhere in history, and he's got something which is a real thing. Yeah. But no, let's get other people to do that, and then the only thing we have left, which is art and entertaining each other. Yeah. Let's say everyone's good at that, and actually, it's oppressive if you say someone's better. If you prefer, why do you only like that kind of comic? Yeah. It's like Jerry Seinfeld had on comedians in cars getting coffee, which I don't think is that great, but for TV it's okay. Yeah. And then he immediately had like, well, where are all the black women? Where are the women of color? Yeah. Like, it's like, I just care about funny. And then you got this like mainstream dude then having to also deal with this stuff. It's just getting so silly. With that bullshit, it's bullshit. It's just a waste. It's like Eddie Murphy's not coming back because I think he's afraid to come back because of, you know, he can be very harshly criticized for some of the stuff he said in the past, you know. By today's standards, I don't criticize him. Raw and Delirious are two of my favorite stand-up. It's like watching Richard Pryor's inspiration, someone carry that torch forward in the 80s. You know? I thought he was too derivative. I loved that as a kid. I loved him. We went to the big screen and saw Raw, and you know, Nutty Professor and stuff like that. I like. To me, he was derivative of Pryor. That did what? Yeah. Once you, it's like George Carlin and Lenny Bruce. Like. And for a lot of people, Lenny Bruce is just incomprehensible because it's so filled with Yiddishisms and very specific news of the day. So you kind of got to know what the hell was going on in history at the time. And so I really love Lenny Bruce. And I know George Carlin used to hang out and see him. He was like a groupie. And there was one night where he was arrested in San Francisco, and Carlin started to backtalk the police that were arresting him, and he got thrown in the same paddy wagon with Bruce. And to him that was like, you know, being with his hero. But with Bruce, Carlin, it was much less difficult to say what he was saying. And he was saying kind of roughly the same ideas that Bruce was saying, but Bruce in his time was really, you know, you make fun of religion back then, it matters. Yeah. And interesting too, though, he was doing stuff about race relations where it was actually closer to the civil rights
movement in America. So he was doing that bit about, are there any niggers in the audience? Are there any niggers in the audience? You know that bit?
By
Lenny Bruce.
By Lenny Bruce? No, I haven't seen that one. I'd only seen a bit of Lenny Bruce, but I know a lot of Carlin.
Yeah, he just comes and says, are there any niggers in the house tonight? Any niggers? Of course, nobody laughs, and he goes, hey, there's 2 wops, 2 kikes, and a mick, and he goes through every racial epithet he can think of the whole audience, and just to prove the point about the deconstruction of the word.
Yeah.
And being so close to the civil rights movement at the time in terms of temporality, you would think there would have been a bigger pushback. And yet, decades later now, we hear nigga mostly from hip hop people, nigga this and nigga that. And we're told that things are actually, you can't laugh at things now that is ancient history.
Yeah.
Whereas in Bruce's time, you were right on the cusp of that. You would think somebody would say, like, whoa, come on, we're trying to get some legislation passed.
Right, yeah. Well, no, because that is also a problem. He's also part of it by even saying the word. And this is what I was saying with... so I watched, when I was like 18, I watched Raw for the first time, which I realize is late. But 5 years later...
It's a good movie. It's a good stand-up performance.
But 5 years later, after watching Delirious and Raw, I was already shocked at the humor on a different level. Like, whoa, shit, he's saying the N-word. I don't think I was calling it the N-word, but then I'm like, he said nigger a lot in that. Yeah. And he also said faggot a lot and all this. Yeah. 10 years now, if I'm having a polite conversation, but like, oh, he says the N-word a lot, because I just don't want to deal with the bullshit on the time. I don't want to get into a debate about it. And then I'm like, fuck, so I'm not saying words anymore because I don't want to get mired down in all this nonsense. Yeah. I'm saying that I think that his stuff is so... It wasn't even that crazy and dangerous at the time, but now, today's standards, he's going to just get raked over the coals, and I think that's why he hasn't come back.
Well, it's a lot of performers. I was talking with my girlfriend last night about Spike Milligan. Spike Milligan used to complain about mosques being built, and I said if you took a Spike Milligan type person with the same talent that Spike had and you drop him into today, and he starts saying the stuff about and I think back in the day. So my counterpoint to her, I forget what she was arguing something else, and I was saying, but the thing is, that was a time in Britain where you kind of just made fun of mosques if you felt like it. It was
right.
It wasn't heavily politicized. It was like you kind of expected your weird, crazy comedians like Spike Milligan to say something about a mosque, and it wasn't considered, ooh, Spike, it's a mosque. It was just, it was part of the rubric of the many things that comedians can make fun of if they didn't like it.
Well, you can't do that today.
You can't do it today, no.
No, but like, see, if a load of churches started opening, new churches, where the fuck's this investment coming for this expensive land, whatever, but it'd be perfectly acceptable to talk about, but because it's a protected class, I'm sorry, but it's blasphemy.
But that's the thing, though, you can do it.
Yeah,
you can, and I think that might be where the comedy. My friend Jay calls it making mountains out of molehills.
Yeah,
that if you do go through all the news, you will find some page 22 article about some kid at a university in Portland who was told that he had to take his Trump hat off. And you'll find that, and you can make that really bad. So it's very difficult to even discern what the actual situation is. I mean, again, living down in Kent versus living in London, it's a completely different perspective. It's just a hunch, but I think most people here are concerned about paying their bills and paying their rent. They don't really give a fuck about so-and-so's feelings were hurt because the Grand Mosque of whatever had some bacon in front of it.
Yeah, but also then you have the other side of it where it's like, I got bored of the religion thing after like Dawkins' book, and like my friend at university in a phone call basically convinced me not to be religious, just from a scientific standpoint. I'm like, oh yeah, cool. Now I'm actually coming back to it and seeing the value of religion a bit more and stuff like that. But I went through my phase of being like, okay, this is a stupid thing you believe in. Yeah. Let's have a debate about it and just seeing cognitive dissonance and stuff like that. And then I got bored with it, and then it became like about the government. Now it seems that it's weird. It's completely gone to the level where it's like one religion, but not the other. Yeah. And that's where I'm like, whoa, hang on a minute. We've gone backwards. When you guys, I'd got bored of how forwards you guys have gone. Yeah. You've all gone backwards on one thing, and you not notice it's trendy stuff.
It's the Pharisees, man. That's why, the first word I ever used to describe Islam was superfluous.
superfluous.
It was. I just thought, but there was absolutely no in the scale of human development and religious development. There was no reason for it because it was two steps backwards. And I wouldn't call myself a Christian, but I come from a Christian civilization, and I have a respect for that history. And the stories of Christ are the story of somebody who was saying, you don't need these Pharisaic laws that you've got. You don't need to do all this crazy observance and ritualistic stuff. You can just, believe and you're free, man. It was very hippie. It was like Douglas Murray says that in his debate with, he was on a panel with Ayaan Hirsi Ali, and he said, if you follow Islam to its fundamentals, you do get some bloodshed out of it. But if you follow Christianity, not Judaism necessarily, but not the Old Testament, but if you follow the New Testament to its fundamentals, you become kind of a hippie. You just grow your hair long and talk about love and turn the other cheek.
Yeah.
And that seems to be what we got now. Is we got the new Pharisees that come along. We have to have a foot bath here, and this ultra sensitivity to that stuff like that, which just seems to be a return of Pharisaic law. And so when I did my Blake documentary, some people got pissed off because there's a line where Blake was really big into sex, and he used the word energies a man and woman are composed of different energies. You can tell there's a code for a lot of fucking.
Sounds sexist to me.
He loved fucking. And there's one of his poems he talks about modesty, and they're all gods or minor deities in his theology, and one of the characters is a man who's being shackled. He's shackled and chained because of jealousy, because the woman that he loves was raped, and so he refuses to forgive her. And at one point she says to him, who taught you this modesty?
Yeah.
And for that scene in the Blake film, I told my friend, I said, let's go to Stratford to the Westfield shopping mall, and we're just going to film women in burqas as this is being read over the top about this line about modesty. Because where else do you go? In our modern society, if you're going to apply Blake today and his views on religion, who taught you this modesty, this hypocritical modesty, he calls it, and it just ends with a shot of a woman in a full burqa drinking from Starbucks.
It's like
because of this stupid modesty thing.
Yeah, it's like I remember seeing during the Women's March, there was like a sign, and it was like a graphic, the kind of like the Obama Hope and Change graphic by that artist, I forgot what his name is, the guy who did the Obey thing, and it was a woman in a hijab, and it was an American flag one.
Yeah,
meaning this is my choice because America's about freedom. You're like, but the history of that garment is not about freedom. It's like having a slave with chains with the American flag on. I was like, I'm choosing to wear my chains. Like, I get that you're choosing to wear chains, but slavery isn't about freedom. Just like the hijab, the history of the hijab isn't about freedom. It just seemed like this ridiculous contradiction. I'm like, oh, this is just a nonsense. I mean, they're not even thinking. They're just, it's a movement with an icon and reasons.
Then there's a whole question of, does the West contain the seeds for its own destruction?
Yes, 100%.
That's, I don't know. That's why I have to say about that egalitarian thing. I mean, what's the solution? Fascism? No, we know that doesn't work because people grow mad but there's no authority operating right now. They're just lucky people who have access to money.
Yeah,
the big guys, the politicians and all that. They happen to be people who lucked out and hold something resembling the purse strings. But they're the only. But nobody really has any actual sense of authority. Like I'm going to listen to so and so because that's the authority on this subject.
Yeah, I think that it's going to be very interesting over the next 50 years to see what happens with Europe and what happens with America. Because the reason I want to become an American citizen is at least you have your First and Second Amendment right. I can be armed and I can say what I want. The government technically can't come after me. I have more protection of that over everywhere else. I mean, did you hear about Count Dankula, the guy in the UK with the Nazi pug thing?
Yeah, but that was a situation where they put the two of us together.
They did?
Before one of the Comedy Unleashed gigs. And I think it was the BBC was there. And I'd just gotten stoned I came in, I was trying to think about what I was doing. The guy comes in with one of those big fucking cameras. I'm like, Jesus Christ.
Last thing I want.
What about freedom of speech or freedom of speech? And they put me next to Dankula, and they said, what did you think about what he did? And I said, well, in my opinion, I would have found it much more braver if he'd had him piss on the Koran.
Right.
But, it's like, what, have you never seen The Producers?
Yeah.
I mean, the Jews have been the butt of how many jokes? To me, I just found it predictable. Gas the Jews. But if you wanted to stay really relevant, what do you think of Muhammad? And he takes a shit or something like that. That would have been impressive. And to me, he's emblematic of where this free speech movement's gone wrong, because it's like a guy taught a dog to, he basically abused a dog with treats to get him to do a trick, ostensibly to get back at his girlfriend. But if that was the case, he wouldn't need to film it on YouTube.
It was also to try and go be funny on YouTube, trying to be a YouTuber.
And then they asked me, so, do you think he should be arrested? And I said, well, no, I don't think he should be arrested. And I don't think he should be fined for it. But is this the best you can do when it comes to free speech?
Right. Yeah.
This is it. This is your emblem of a free speech icon, an idiot who taught a dog to do a Nazi salute.
Well, it's a shame that it's that, though, isn't it? Because it's someone who's not thinking, they've just got accidentally caught up in it for whatever reasons. Yeah. We're all idiots at different times. It's not a very funny joke. No. There's a better way of making the point, but the fact that he even got fined, and that terrified, I'm like, what the fuck? You're going to get your life dragged through the courts by the government?
I had people calling me when that was going around. I had people who are very vocal now, and they're, these new free speech people. I had them getting a hold of me. What do you think of this? What do you think? Because they didn't know what to think of it. And they were calling me as if I was the sounding template for all this shit, because what they'd done for years, these fuckers, was let me go out there and do something. Wait to see if it was safe or not. But, when I gave out my awards, I had people whispering, like, I love your stuff, don't tell anybody, please. But I love your stuff, And at the time, I thought, that's fine, because they get to be the cowards and I get to be the brave one. I was okay with that. But what my problem was, now you don't get to be the brave one all of a sudden, especially if you're omitting my name in all of these discussions. You need to say, I called you up the night before. I mean, here's one example. Guy now who's very vocal on the free speech movement called me up one night before he had a regular job. The next day, they wanted him to all say what their pronouns were. In some business meeting, he says, "What should I do? What should I do?"
Oh my God!
What should I do? And I said, "Well, why are you calling me for?" He says, "Like, I'm blacklisted. I can't fucking. Well, why would you take any advice I say?" And then by the end, I thought, no, wait a second, I'm only blacklisted because cowards like you, haven't fucking done anything. So I'm only in this fucking situation because more people didn't open their fucking mouth. And but these same people that were calling me for advice and opinions and all this shit are now out there going like, "What's wrong with free speech?" Right? And they're getting stage time and they're getting book contracts and all this bullshit. And
it's not real. It's all just following a fashion. It's just a good market. It's a market.
Yeah. The same people who say, I'm here to build bridges, not burn them." So that's a political answer if I ever heard one.
Like your little bit where you had, it's now profitable to do activism. It's profitable now.
It's profitable to do free speech.
Free speech is profitable, yeah. But there's the real stuff, and that's the thing, though, right? Is because like when I saw your comedy, I went, oh fuck, here's some real new comedy. I was like, I'm excited again about it. So. You've got all this bullshit, fake nonsense, and people getting book deals and all that stuff. But I think that good art, good expression, good bravery, whatever a true risk something to make something, it shines with the people it's important to. And like, I wouldn't have heard of you if you hadn't have done that. And I think the people that matter, the people, no matter what, like Blackadder and all the stuff you grew up with, it's always going to mean something to you. And if you met the like Rowan Atkinson or anybody, you'd be like, oh, it was you tell them how, and that's never going to change no matter what else happens. And at the end of the day, isn't that, as an artist, isn't that what you really want, to connect with the people that really matter and to...
I'm not sure what it is I want. Once upon a time, I wanted to be on TV, and I thought it was as easy as just be really good, and you'll get on TV. I thought that was it. And then just as the older I get, I'm in my late 40s now. I just want to pay rent on this place, and I don't really want much. Maybe get a dog one day or something, like get a car maybe.
But keep doing stand up.
I'm not sure about that. About the traveling, I'm not sure about the traveling anymore. Man. I get. Because that's the thing is, that other side, whatever that other side is, the establishment comedians, they could have used me, and I've been on the periphery for ages, and a lot of those people, Stuart Lee knows me, Matt Lucas, they all know me, but for whatever reasons, they distanced themselves from me. But I've been kind of orbiting around, but they could have used me, and unfortunately, because they didn't, for whatever personal reasons, I kind of got claimed by. Oh, fuck! I bet that's my buzzer, man.
No worries.
Yeah, hang tight.
Yeah, no worries. I'll pause. I forgot what we were talking about before.
I think we all did.
Yeah, we got off the train at some point. But 100%. Well, this has been awesome. Definitely want to sit down with you again at some point.
Appreciate it.
Really, really enjoyed it. I ask all comics, like, what's advice that you give to comedians starting out now?
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
You're in my way.
That's what Sam Walker said.
Yeah, did he say that as well?
Sam Walker said the first thing he was like, "Don't do it." Like,
yeah, it's not like, I mean, I don't know. I just think there's too many. It's funny because there's a friend of mine who's not a comedian. A couple of years ago, I said something. He said something about there's too many comedians, and I thought that was interesting for somebody who wasn't a comedian to know that. But even your ordinary punter knows it now too. That back in the day, you might have a pantheon of top named comedians to choose from, but it wasn't too many. It wasn't enough to like confound the mind. And now, I mean, you could meet anybody. Like there's be people across the street. I guarantee you talk to them, they know somebody who does comedy.
Yeah.
Right now, it's just proliferated so much. So, it has to be a calling. I think it's going back to the Protestant Reformation. I think you have to be called to do it. I think, and I don't know how to convey that to somebody to whom it isn't a calling. But I guess if you're taking comedy courses to learn comedy, you probably shouldn't be doing it. There's probably all sorts of takeaways, but I think a lot of people are doing it that probably shouldn't be doing it.
Could you explain then when you said that this is a calling for you? Can you just try and get over what you mean by that and how you felt that? How would someone know what their calling is? Do you know what I mean? Or that they're being called to something rather than their one calling that they have. How did you know it was your calling?
I think because it was a survival mechanism for me, first and foremost. I mean, my father was really abusive, and he would go on the road sometime for work, and then that would leave me at home with my two older sisters and my mother. And for some reason, I started to impersonate him when he was gone, and I think there was a kind of the valve had been released. There was so much pressure when he was at home that when he was gone, the pressure was loosened up, and I found power by impersonating him, and of course that got me my first audience, which were my sisters and my mother.
Right.
So there was an early connection that was made early on about if you don't want to slit your wrist, do comedy, and I think a lot of comedians don't have that. Nowadays they're just. I was at a board meeting and I said something funny, and the girl laughed next to me, so I thought I'd enroll in a comedy course, or I have a 5-year business plan of how I'm going to get from here to a panel show or whatever, but. It's what made Richard Pryor funny. I mean, you come from tragedy, and that is the calling. You find it maybe accidentally, maybe it was preordained, but somehow you find that you don't have to slit your wrist as long as there's this thing called humor.
Did you, when you started impersonating your dad in front of your sisters and your mum, did they find it like, how funny did they find it? Was it?
I don't even remember. I mean, of course, as a 6-year-old, it couldn't have been that convincing a impersonation. I think it was just saying something under his breath, like "God damn it, Pat, get me my coffee," or just something like that. So it wasn't accurate. But they probably laughed because it was probably a relief. I think the whole family felt a sense of relief.
Yeah.
Sure. So it's a spiritual thing for me. It's not a business thing. I can't be duplicitous like that, and and that's why I'm not farther along than people say I should have been by now. Because Peter Cook's a great example of somebody who I feel was called. I don't think he had that tragic an upbringing. I think he came from a very relatively affluent family, but there was something in him that had the divine spark of comedic genius. And when he died, and in his last years, he would call LBC and pretend to be a Norwegian fisherman named Sven. And so this is a guy, and he went from such a height, because do you know much about Cook?
No, I don't know.
Well, he did Beyond the Fringe, the review with Dudley Moore, and they were so successful. They got to go to America and do it on Broadway, meet President Kennedy.
Wow.
He started the Establishment Club out here. He was that started the satire boom. Although he denied that he was a satirist, he was a surrealist first and foremost. And then by the end, he had all these personal problems, but he still felt the need to call LBC in the middle of the night and pretend to be a Norwegian fisherman.
So he was doing that just for his own
amusement.
Yeah. You'd love that Chris Morris conversation he has with Adam Buxton, because he talks about how he used to go out just at university when he was bored.
Yeah.
Just constant work. He'd just go out on the street with a microphone and say, "Hey, we're talking about dog collars. Does everyone need a dog collar?" And all that. And he's like this kid, too big, too small for his shirt and all that kind of stuff. Just bored, and he felt like the need to do it because everything else is so mundane. For whatever reason, he just had to do it, not so someone else can see, not just for himself to do it. This is another interesting thing that I've noticed, because I'm kind of caught between both worlds. I grew up without the internet, and then I got the internet, and I'm like geeky. Like, there was a point where it was me and 3 of my friends were on the internet. So we were the first people on the internet mid-90s, basically. Now everyone's online. So I'm doing open mics all the time, and I'm recording everything because I want to be able to look back in it and learn from it and whatever. But loads of comics put their material online, like when it's not done. It's like this, you're not getting any laughs. Why are you putting it online? My brother, who's 10 years younger than me, said, "Oh no, they're doing it for a different reason to you. They want to become a comic and they want to do well and want to make a room full of people laugh, but everyone shares everything now. So this is just another thing you share. I mean, they're sharing the avocado meal they ate. So of course they're going to put on the time they got on stage and nobody laughed, because the paradigm now is you share everything. Yeah. Kids have got iPhones from the cradle now.
It's religious and moral.
It's mad.
It's I guess the mentality is if you have a bad gig, you share that so you can go, lift me up. And if you have a good gig, you share it so people go, good for you. But again, it's just that fucking goddamn community. Yeah. Which kills art. You could write the most profound piece on any subject and put it up on YouTube or on Facebook. And you'll get less views than if you just say Jeremy Corbyn's a dick and here's why. There's no thought to any of this. It's heartbreaking. There's that Ingmar Bergman film where Max von Sydow kills himself because he fears China's going to get the bomb. And I remember watching that as a young man thinking, that's a bit extreme to kill yourself over the state of the world. But the older I get, I can understand why people would just really want to kill themselves given the state of the world. And it's, the whole left-right dichotomy is such an illusion, because it really is about we are the nadir of culture. It's the end of a civilization, and comedy was once a part of that civilization, but I don't know. It's going away in the name of making everybody just feel good for participating.
Yeah.
Fuck that.
But oh God, I don't get this. But like I said to my friends, you'll never see a rodeo participation belt buckle here in Texas.
Well, you will. You will.
The day you get that, that's when it's over.
Yeah, it will
the
happen.
Most manly thing ever.
Yeah.
Riding a bull for a belt buckle so you can get laid that evening is going to be, well, we all get one because we all took part. So what? I can just turn up and be there and take part. It's silly. It's a crazy world we're living in, but I do think there's still room for the genuine. I think that in times like this, when everything's so fake, that's when something really genuine stands out. That's what I felt when I saw.
Well, you'd hope so, but we are living through the death of history. I mean, history's being. I even take things like remakes of films personally. It's like you don't. I wasn't a fan of RoboCop, but I thought why did you need to make? You mean of all the power in Hollywood and all the supposed great minds you've got, you didn't have anybody with any different idea about robots and police and you had to just remake that one. Why? Because you hate your audience. Yeah, you loathe them so much, and you think they're such idiots. You can just throw that out there and say, "Come see this," and unfortunately, too many people let them get away with it.
Yeah, I've stopped paying to go and see that stuff, because that's it. You go to a movie, and I like the cinema experience most of the time. Yeah. because it's a ritual. It's like, I'm going to go there, not have my phone on, I'm going to be with some other people, whatever, right? Yeah. But I don't want to pay for the film, which is terrible. So some people go and watch a film because they want to see what it's like. They'll pay another film, though, that they want to support, and they'll sneak into that movie. I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah. It's like, I'm going to go and watch the new RoboCop movie so I can satirize it, but I'm going to pay for the thingy film, which I agree with, which I've seen. Like, I went to watch the Joker 3 times, the new Joker, because I was like, fuck, this is like a fresh movie. And apparently Todd Phillips wanted to make Taxi Driver. He wanted to remake Taxi Driver, and they wouldn't give it to him. He was like, all right, I'll take that story and I'll retell it as the Joker.
As Taxi Driver. That's what I heard he did. It was actually...
He was going to do Taxi Driver, redo Taxi Driver, but they couldn't get it.
No, but some of the critiques I've seen of it...
the Joker.
They're saying that he was trying to do King of Comedy and Taxi Driver in one...
Yes, he was. But it was a good film as well, because you got this other view on the Joker, and it made you want to see those movies to appreciate the whole thing.
I've not seen it, so...
I really, really enjoyed it, but it reminded me, I thought, okay, here's an original. It's not original at all, but here's another take on the Joker, and it's based on this movie, which I really like, Taxi Driver. I haven't seen King of Comedy. And I just saw it as an artistic piece. It's awesome, like really, really good. And it reminded me, do you know what? I do love Batman and the Joker. I loved them when I was a kid, 1989, when Jack Nicholson played. But I've really not enjoyed this. Just superhero movies. I can't believe how popular they are.
Yeah. Because we need a hero.
Yeah.
That's when you kill off history, you also kill off heroes. And history is a story of leaders and followers. And if you can't have a leader anymore, and it's just a movement, you can't have history anymore. Yeah. Who's going to write the history of this Extinction Rebellion nonsense? Them? And who's going to read it? Them?
Yeah.
So you might as well ask amoebas to write the history of something. You ask a lower form of life to write. A movement is a lower form of human life. I don't know. I mean, then you get this counter-revolutionary stuff, like Robespierre, it wasn't, the revolution is never enough. You got to have a bunch of headless bodies to justify the revolution. The Soviets, the Pol Pot, everything, and, who knows you don't have to kill the body. You just kill the mind. So this side, it's global warming. And the other side, watch out, snowflake. And you have these two sides, and nobody's really thinking for themselves.
Yeah, no one's sitting down and going, why do I think this way? And what do you think about it? And is this an original idea? No, I just listened to that guy. Why did I listen to that guy?
It's scary. It is actually scary to reflect on one's life. When I was telling the thing about the Screen Actors Guild, I was like, I can't have been right about everything. And however, when I tell these stories about how I've rubbed people the wrong way or whatever, that you kind of as an individual are going up against a society that is growing increasingly nice. And even the free speechy people. So, you go back to Constantine Kissin, free speech. It's not who you are on the stage, it's who you are off the stage. And I said, a sentiment like that is like the Chinese social code. It's who you are if it's who I am off the stage, then it doesn't matter how good I am at comedy. By your arbitrary strictures of what constitutes niceness. Because when I show up at a gig, I never hang out with other comedians. I'm outside chain smoking and pacing and trying to get my shit together mentally before I go on, or I'm inside way in the back with my little notepad, but I'm not chumming it with the other comedians. Now, somebody like Kissin or whatever, they see that and they go, he's an antisocial, or he's, they don't understand how the individual needs to be alone to work his shit out. Because I'm there to be on the stage. I'm not there to be friends with you. I'm there to be on the stage. But, it shows you how that's the one thing that brings them together. So as far to the right as they may be and as far to the left as they may be, the one thing that unites them is that they like niceness. Yeah. At the end of the day. That's why you have... the Tories say that about the ending mental health stigma and climate change, because they want to sound like the nice people.
Why can't people just come together over a shared appreciation of something that's real, though? Like I like sitting, like you and I have gotten really well because we share this similar appreciation in comedy, and that's how I don't care. Like, I don't care what your political views are. They could be, you know what I mean? It's like, well, that's what you think, but how do we connect?
Or not even political views. It's like, you could have had that job if you would have shaken his hand and say, hey, I hear you do a podcast, the trigonometry. that, and it's just I'm not interested in any of that stuff.
It's just what you're genuinely interested in.
But so much of this bad comedy that you see now is a result of those handshakes. It's a result of those pally, chummy experiences, and that's really unfortunate for somebody who just honestly just wants to focus on doing a really good job. A friend of mine from California years ago said, everybody else spent their time trying to make it, and you spent your time trying to be good.
Yeah.
Because you thought by being good, you would make it by default, and it hasn't been that case. It's been a tough road because my energy has been in that. Like, now how can I top that last show, and what else and how many voices can I add into this, and how complex can I make this, when in fact I should have been focusing on a tight 10 minutes, and then be sure you say hi to so and so because he runs that gig here, and that, the whole chain of networking.
It's great. Yeah, I've seen different sides of it, because there's going to be you're completely on the artistic side, and when you say you don't like hanging around people at gigs, it's because you're trying to get in the moment for the thing. Whatever your process is to do the best work of art on stage, that's it, right? That's not the time and the place for you to socialize. No. Everyone's got their own way of hanging out with people.
But the reason a lot of comedians can socialize like that beforehand is because they're actually not doing anything that requires any dexterity. Take one of Kissin's jokes. Last year when they had the Russian winter, they said, you must love the cold, you're from Russia. And I say, you must love the train cancellations, you're from Britain. Now, if that was my routine, I could afford to have a pipe and social. Who books that gig? I could do all that banter. But, the type of stuff I'm doing on stage requires a lot of concentration.
Yeah, so you don't write anything down. You never write anything down.
I try to avoid it, really, yeah.
Yeah, you've only done it like once or twice, you said, in your...
I mean, the Greta thing, or just anything.
Like physically written something down. I think I heard that you said that you only did it once when you had to say something which was like...
Yeah, if I purposely want something to sound stilted, I'll write it down. If I want like I did a Jeeves and Wooster spoof recently with Jeeves and Windsor. So,
cool.
Yeah, it was, what ho, Jeeves, you are cordially invited to bask in a glow of my effervescent relief. Old Jeffrey Epstein has only gone and tied the knot, not to a young lady, but round his neck, taking along with him a past catalogue of clients, including yours truly. I only fear, sir, that your light spirits may be obscuring a rather dark reality. So in order to imitate Wodehouse, you do have to write the words down because you want to get every word correct. But usually if you want something to sound improvisatory or as if that person is actually saying it in the heat of the moment, I'll write down a bullet point. Like, I wish I still had the Greta notes, but it was like, it looks totally incomprehensible. It's like teacher, MI5, trans, but really basic bullet points just so I know what order everything goes in.
Because you've seen it, you've observed it, you just want to kind of be in the moment and say what because you're embodying a character, you're personifying a character. So you just, in that moment, you want to say whatever feels right, as long as you're going in this direction. Is that what it is? It's kind of like freestyling it in a way.
Yeah, I think even it doesn't matter how good you are as an actor. I think anytime you write something down, there's just even the vaguest hint of it being scripted. But usually I say it in regards to memorization. So I know a lot of people have struggle with memorization. Like, how do you memorize all this stuff? And I say, well, if you write something down, what you've done is you've created two of you, a real you and a written you. So the real you is on stage trying to bring that written you back in his head. Whereas if you don't have a written you, it's all you anyway. And then you are flying without a safety net.
That's the fear.
Yeah. You just fly without a safety net, and
oh god. See, I've been writing on the back of my hand and stuff, and I know what the stuff is. Yeah. And actually, do you know what I've found? I've got like one joke when it goes. If it works well, I go, right, let's really go into this area. And it's 50-50 whether it does well or not.
Yeah.
And I've got a certain way of doing it, which is so well rehearsed that it never deviates.
Yeah.
And part of it has been getting comfortable with being on stage. So I need that crutch. But I know that the best stuff comes out off the cuff because it's stuff I've been thinking anyway. Stuff will piss me off. I'm like, it's in you anyway. The stuff that annoys you, which is quite often why I write stuff.
That is, yeah.
Like, okay, the way people talk about this pisses me off. The way you react when this is brought up pisses me off. Mm-hmm. I want to get that across in the performance. And it's a fear of going up there without the safety net, which means that you actually end up making more work for yourself because then you've got to remember this thing.
You create more fear for yourself as well too.
Yeah,
because it's like, no, that's not the word. That's not the word I put down. What's the word I put down? You know, you become traumatized by whereas if you just, no, I'm this person. That's it. You just wave your hand. You know, if the transgender can do it by saying I'm a woman, why can't you do it by saying, yeah, I'm this character just for those 2 minutes? They could do it for their whole life, you know?
Yeah. I think I'm going to go a bit more with that and just go with it. Because that's what I saw watching yours. I thought, oh, this is so different to everyone else. Yeah. It's not set up punchline. It's like, get involved in the experience. It's all funny. Yeah. You'll pick up on different points, but it's not his, because I say it's not set up punchline. It's set up punchline, laughter. Yeah. So the closer to one-liners that you have, the more it breaks the illusion of what's really going on. Because they're like, oh, that was my cue to laugh, and I didn't laugh. That's what means he wrote it and he's not doing well here. And then all of a sudden you've got this psychological thing going on with you and the audience. Whereas when I watch yours, I don't know where the punchlines are. I'm just watching an act out, and there's some stuff in there which could be a setup punchline. Yeah. Like I go around quoting one of your, giving you credit, but quoting one of your Greta Thunberg, the one that I put in the email. About Mecca is just one of the greatest punchlines of all time. Yeah. I love it.
I appreciate that.
You guys need to check it out. Greta Thunberg, Will Franken. But other stuff is an impression. And actually what you're really doing is all of those skills together, unscripted. So it's like you were doing an hour-and-a-half show every month at one point?
In San Francisco, yeah. It was how I paid the rent. There was a nice bar owner there that had a very nice financial arrangement with him. He'd keep the money from the bar, I'd keep the ticket sales, and the same group of people would come down on a monthly basis because I would come up with a new title and force myself to write a new show. That's amazing. And I that's what one of these days, want to get I'd like to get started out here, because with the comedy thing now is if you book a show, you're usually the compere. So you're the booker and the compere. Yeah. And then you introduce all these three people that you want to have on your show. What I would do is I would be the headliner. I would be the regular headliner, and the compere and the opening act would change, which are purely functional. The compere is a purely functional thing. He's kind of funny, but not all the way. He's
also there just warm up as well.
He's warm up. He's there to facilitate, whatever. But I would be the closing headliner. It's a way of saying this different shit every single month, which I think is what's missing. Yeah. Nobody deviates from the business model. The booker's the compere introduces, then everybody sucks up to the compere. Hey, also good to meet you. How you doing? It's a suck up thing. Whereas if you say that you're the headliner, I'm just there to choose you, but basically it's my show. I'm doing my show, and if I wasn't such a bad businessman, I'd get off my ass and try to figure out a way to get it going down here.
He's doing something completely different to everyone else, and I think that there's a lot of space for that. And I think the fact that one of your videos went viral in that way means that you have to court that world a little bit, but I don't think you necessarily need to compromise what the thing you're doing is. I think, it's
couldn't do it anyway, even if they asked me. They just wouldn't know how to do it, wouldn't have any interest.
Yeah. I've got. I'm gonna unfortunately have to go soon. Man. But I have a message from someone on Reddit. They had a specific question they wanted me to.
Oh yeah, okay.
All right, so I'm gonna give this guy a shout out. A wild, crazy blah is the guy's name. Do your ideas start absurd, or do you take something ordinary and wrap it in and warp it in the writing kind of thing? Is it always absurd from the start, or do you?
I think it's always absurd from the start. Yeah, I don't know. There's only maybe been a handful of times where I start off with a subject and say, I want to do something about that. And then I write a bit around that. But usually it's just having the news on in the background. I mean, the most recent thing I put up on YouTube, or this sketch thing about people climbing Mount Everest who had weird fetishes. I don't know. There must have been something on Sky News that was kind of playing in the background. Then when I went to the toilet, I thought, the first coprophiliac has climbed Mount Everest. 29-year-old who likes sticking cameras up ladies' toilets has made coprophilia history. And it just all came to me at once because that's what it sounded like to me. And sometimes if you listen to the world, it already sounds absurd. Famous first is the first time. Well, yeah, if you say that a man can be a woman if he says so, then you are going to have a lot of famous first. You're going to have the first man who said he was a woman win a shot put competition. Yeah, so if you change the rules of what a famous first is or what a man and a woman is, then you are going to have all sorts of shit. But that's usually they just start off absurd as is.
The first man who says he's a woman X is brilliant.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
I was thinking before when you said like, the first of this and how people, it was Will and Grace, right? You were saying the first gay male to be shown as non-negative.
Yeah.
How about in a comedy like that, we have the first husband, which isn't shown as negative? Because how dumb are husbands on these TV shows?
Well, they're always stupid, yeah.
Like,
what's a spoon?
And the woman's always like, like that was something that Daniel Tosh did. He had a really good bit where he said they always have that hammer that stereotype home. It's that the man's always this bumbling idiot running around chasing after the woman for sex, and she just doesn't want anything. He goes, let me just say this now: women want to have sex more often than men. All the women are poor. And he goes, ladies, wait until you hear it. Well, he said something like, I can guarantee you're not going to like this perspective. And I'm not sure if you listen to my comedy or not, but I have a pretty gender-specific slant that I ride really hard. Then he goes into the fact that most men don't want to sleep with women after the first year, essentially. He goes into this
like
reality.
Burnout.
Yeah, burnout. It's like a man's never been more sexually attracted to you than when he first slept with you, and then after that it goes down a notch. I'm butchering his bit, but it's in People Pleaser, and I forgot what my point was now. What were we talking about?
In relation to absurd ideas.
Absurd ideas, Daniel Tosh. I'm off the train. I forgot where we...
I think they do start off absurd.
Oh, yeah, your ideas start off absurd, yeah. Yeah, that was it. First man who said he was a woman.
First man who said he was a woman, yeah.
What was the term that you had for men like putting cameras in the...
Coprophilia.
Coprophilia.
I took an abnormal psychology course when I first year in university just to see if I wanted to be a psychiatrist, and there was a chapter on paraphilias, people who, with weird fetishes, and I always remember
paraphilia.
I remember the word coprophilia. That was weird. And then there was, I forget the one for amputees. There were people who have fetishes for amputees, and then klismanophilia, I think, is if you like enemas.
If you like enemas.
And I was really intrigued by all the specifics of all this. So, yeah, I was, and Chuck Berry actually was a coprophiliac. Apparently he did cameras up the toilets and all that.
So that's what it is. It's someone who likes to put cameras up a toilet. Is it coprophilia?
Well, no,
that's specific.
No, it covers people who are sexually attracted to feces.
Oh, feces. Sorry, okay, it's not a camera thing.
Not a camera thing. Yeah, it's a fetish for feces. But
so what's the word?
Coprophilia.
Coprophilia. So what's copra mean?
I don't know. I guess shit, maybe.
Shit, yeah.
And I'm wondering if I'm pronouncing it. I'm not sure if it's coprophilia or coprophilia, but it was fun. And I remember because I was in my 20s when I took that course, but just that idea came to me. You never know where the stuff's an idea is going to come from.
Something that stands out to you.
The first coprophiliac to climb Mount Everest, and then it turns out there's the first balloon fetishist and the first skull fucker. And of course, the skull fucker's on top of Mount Everest and finds a dead mountaineer, and he fucks the skull, so he doesn't want to come back down. And yeah, that's basically it. But it's basically taking what's already given to you, which is this idea of the first this and the first that. We're done with the first. We don't have the first of anything anymore. We keep it's the first time Ghostbusters has been remade with an all-female cast. That's not a really important first,
right?
So we need to. It'd be nice if we went out there and actually did making real proper first. Again.
Yeah,
really important contributions to history and progress, true scientific progress. Like, let's go to Mars, man.
Yeah,
let's fucking go to Mars.
That'd be sick.
Yeah, but this is it's interesting that we're all worshiping the Earth right now, and I have nothing against the Earth, but it is the entire direction of everything is inward. So, am I autistic? Am I OCD? There's that mental health masturbation fetish we're in now. Self-help, Facebook, social media. You're constantly on your own platform receiving feedback in your own head. And then this climate thing, which fits in nicely because you're just looking down at the Earth.
This is the only place.
It's the only place, and you're subtracting yourself from the info. All you got to do is look up at the stars and say, "What the fuck else is beyond there?" And I think it's no coincidence the space program has gone tits up, but everything's going towards this climate nonsense. We are nihilist and only think in finite terms these days.
The only person who's getting closer is Elon Musk with his SpaceX stuff.
I like what he's doing with that stuff.
Yeah, well, Richard Branson was going to do it with Virgin Galactic.
He was.
I would honestly work my entire life, sell everything I own for my retirement thing to be go into orbit. I think pretty sure going to the moon or something like that. I mean, it'd have to be a lot. You wouldn't have to be a super athlete in order to do it.
I like what he's doing. I like what he's doing. I don't know much about his personal beliefs and anything, but I like kind of what he's saying is that, well, if you guys aren't going to do the space thing, I'd be interested. And it is kind of that private enterprise if you get an idea and see it through. So good on him for that.
Yeah, man. I hope one day to get it, because always been interested in space.
Yeah.
I mean, how could you not be interested in it?
Yeah.
But you can't see the stars. I can imagine you get decent night sky-ish here, right?
It's beautiful, yeah.
You're quite far from London. That train that I got in here was amazing.
50 minutes.
Yeah. I was like, I felt like I was underground the entire time, was I?
Mm.
Yeah, I didn't realize that.
No. There's a few underground patches, yeah.
Oh, yeah, it was amazing.
4 stops, yeah.
Awesome. But we don't have a view of the night sky anymore, and that's a real issue. Like, we've got a telescope, had a telescope, I'm just buying a new one at the moment, because just looking at a star and then looking through a telescope and seeing, I know that's a planet and it's got rings.
Yeah.
And this is the first time it's the light from that planet going into my eye. That's different to a picture in a book.
Yeah. It's the infinite.
It's the infinite.
It's looking upward. It's looking towards the verticality again instead of just this flat horizontal.
Looking back in time. That's the crazy shit.
Oh yeah.
You're looking.
With the amount of time it takes a light to register. Yeah.
If you can go through a wormhole and get clear line of sight, 10,000 light years away from Earth, you can look back on the pyramids being made.
Yeah.
What the fuck? It's crazy.
It's like what I said about the BBC. It's like you don't have to look back that far. Just look 20 years. 20 years, you could find authentic genius and brilliance that this institution produced. Why won't you look in that direction? Nobody's looking in the right direction. We're looking at our pee-pees and going, if I put that in the butthole, will y'all accept me? it really is like that. It's like, yes, we did. Once upon a time we did already, but now we're going to make parades and make this the be-all and end-all of human existence. Yeah, we're just like diddling with our danglies, but we're not making anything.
Yeah, gay pride now compared to 50 years ago.
What the hell was that? Even that's considered a lot of noise.
That's a lot of noise for around here. Yeah, to me, I didn't even hear.
Going on
to you, it
there?
probably sounds like a chopper going past. Like,
I saw B-2 bombers, American-built B-2 bombers, fly over one day.
Was it on some kind of? Was it like
they loaned
Poppy
them out.
Day thing?
No, apparently it was to show force against Russia because some RAF bases are nearby here, and they were flying. It was such a beautiful sight.
Yeah,
these beautiful black geometric.
Must have been pretty loud.
Quiet.
Oh, really?
Well, they're called the stealth bomber.
Oh, sorry, the stealth bomber. Sorry, I thought you meant to say the B-52.
Yeah.
Oh.
During the summer, you see Spitfires on a regular basis.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's cool, man. That stuff's insane.
They still keep history alive out here.
Yeah, I love big old ships and stuff like that. Anything like, and I can't imagine what seeing a Zeppelin would have been like a huge, crazy. All right, Will, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on. This
No worries,
has been
pal.
Awesome.
Thank you, my friend.
All right.
How long did we do? 3 hours?
3 hours, man. Yeah, that was sick.
Help you break down.